going?
Yeah.
Represent.
Did you call each other?
We usually coordinate our outfits. Don't you? That work?
Eric and I do.
It actually, it would be hilarious if you all wore the same outfit. Staff, yeah. You should do that sometime.
We'll do that on November
Yeah.
11th in honor of our 150th.
We should get you commemorative blazers to wear.
Now we're
I like that.
The patch,
With 150 on the back.
Now we're talking. That could be the ABC dinner gift.
That's right.
That and some sticky notes.
Yes, yes, sticky notes with a special logo.
With no food.
Hand drawn by staff.
There actually won't be a dinner.
It's only on
Just come get your jacket. Show you the email traffic.
To do it right.
We'll just throw them all over the place.
I was checking 2 different email accounts because at some point in time, Jimmy started emailing my Gmail.
Ready on the far right? All right. You really do. Before I call the first public hearing to order, just want to note for those in the audience tonight that we will have 2 public hearings tonight before we start the regular township meeting. So with that announcement, I will call to order, before I call to order the first public hearing, I just want to note for the record that this body, council, met in executive session prior to this meeting for a topic allowed under Pennsylvania Sunshine Law. In this case, it was a legal matter. So with that, I'm going to call to order the first of our 2 public hearings, which is conditional use permit for multifamily residential uses and planned research and business park district, PRD. Just for a note, before we start, I have 6 names here, folks signed up that want to speak to council during one of these 2 public hearings. So if there's anybody in there that hasn't signed up, you'll have a chance after we go through these 6 names. Okay?
Good evening. My name is Charlie Sir. I'm an attorney with Stevens & Lee, representing the applicant in the conditional use hearing, as well as the second hearing. When we concluded the hearing in December, we really had presented all the testimony that we had regarding the project, and it was my understanding that we were going to open up the hearing really more for Q&A. Residents had any questions, people who couldn't make it to the first hearing would have the ability to ask questions of us and pose questions to the board doing that. So we have our development team here, and we have really nothing further to add as to testimony. We would be here for Q&A. I will say there was a discussion about possible conditions, and I know we're on a little bit later on in the agenda to discuss possible conditions for the project, and we have met, and we do have a proposal for a fee in lieu of recreational path, basically from our property going towards I-99, to be a fee in lieu to pay for that in conjunction with the Shiloh Road improvements, which would come into fruition in the next couple of years. Doesn't make sense to do that now, but that would really be an extension of the recreational facilities that we're showing on our property right now. But again, it's an off-site improvement that we would do, but as a fee in lieu, and we have the calculations that we would be able to provide and nail down during land development stage. So with that, we're really, I guess, close my statement here, and it's really for Q&A from members of the public, or as well as any questions that the board may have of our witnesses. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's start with the list here. You're on the list.
Me?
Can I check you off?
You can check me off.
All right. And then moving up from you, we have Ron from Pantera.
That's me.
Anything else to add?
Check me off as well.
Check you off.
Yeah.
John, anything else to add? And Adam, did you say Mr. Costas is no longer here?
I believe
Yes, he is left.
he's
Okay.
left.
Amy, I can't make out your last name.
She's with me. No,
She's
there's
with you?
nothing, no.
Okay. So we're down to Matt from Burkentine. You're good?
I'm good.
All right, so anybody who didn't sign this, would they like to address council on this matter during this public hearing? Okay.
We do have some folks online. I don't see any hands up, though.
All right, can we toggle back to that just to give them one more chance?
Of course.
Okay. Anybody online like to address council during this public hearing? Please raise your digital hand or unmute and holler.
Let's just make sure this is turned up.
Not too loud.
What?
Wow. Sorry. Okay, how about that?
You want me to test it? A little bit.
Mics.
Didn't they mute the computer but turn the owl up?
Yes.
I think that's how they solved this.
Okay.
Okay, testing again.
Hey,
It's better.
All right, great. Sorry about that.
Mark, you get a gold star.
Hear that?
Free sweatshirt.
All right, let's move to Lindsay. We'll start with you before questions on, or comments from staff on the first.
Okay, great.
Section.
So this is the first in a series of public hearings this evening. You heard the public hearing for the conditional use. Per the municipality's planning code, the public hearing shall be concluded within 60 days after the date of the first public hearing, which was held on December 19th. So this evening is an opportunity for council to close this hearing, which at that time you will have 45 days to prepare any conditions that you might feel are reasonable to the actual use. Also, with your agendas tonight, you received a memo regarding conditional uses. As council knows, back in early 2023, we changed the zoning ordinance to permit multifamily residential in the planned research business park district. And we did that so long as it's done as a conditional use, and the PRD, planned residential development process, is also applied to that. So when we updated the ordinance, it was an interim change, and we wanted to, since we're undergoing a Dale Summit area plan and revitalization of that whole area, we wanted this interim step to kind of have some control, a little extra local control, which is the reason why we have conditional uses. So we applied that as a conditional use, and now council was able to update the ordinance, but since it was an interim step, we allowed a lot of optional regulations in there, shall we say, may statements rather than shall statements, which shall statements are required in the MPC, may statements are optional. So within your packet, I did include some of those may statements, at least a few of them that the applicant has not incorporated into the PRD plan. So they're here tonight for your consideration. We have been back and forth, of course, with the developer and making sure that everything is in place, but these are some of the optional ones, of course, that council can review tonight.
The ones in the memo.
The ones in the memo, yes, under PH1A conditional uses.
Right, just for the record, can you just bullet point out again and review the areas that memo covers?
Sure, yeah. Elements of the new ordinance that became optional are including but not limited to spacing, block standards, buffer yards, and frontage.
Okay. Adam, anything else to add?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Instead of addressing these, we're going to go once around through council, and then we'll work our way back where there's some, let's say, continuing here then on the right. Susan?
Sure. Thank you. I had a couple of questions, and I'll start with mine. Specifically, my questions pertain to the open space requirements in the PRD. And I would ask that we have the opportunity to review the open space requirements in addition to the active open space requirements and the contiguous land used for those different activities, for those different options. So I'd like to leave that open for further discussion. I'd also like to have the opportunity to address the PRD as being in the wellhead area, and in particular, how the construction techniques will affect how the PRD is built and done with regard to the wellhead area, in the wellhead protection area. And then, thinking about any other questions I might have, I think for me, that would be the extent of my questions at this time.
Okay, Rich?
So we're just laying out.
Yeah, what I think we'll do is let's get everything on the table.
Okay.
We'll go back, any follow-up comments, and then any follow-ups from clarification from council.
Okay.
So, anything you want to get out on the record as concerns or fair game, what we consider fair game?
Okay, very good. First of all, thank you to the staff and the developer and the residents for working with us through this complicated process. Especially appreciate having the solicitor with us this evening to provide adult supervision to us where needed. In particular, in looking at the plan, conceptually, I think we've all discussed that we appreciate and want this type of development in the area, but we do have to make sure that we're covering our bases on various things. A couple of things that I identified going through is I would like to see the analysis of the proposed density versus the maximum allowed in the area, and to see how we're falling on fully utilizing the property. Another one would be on the perimeter requirements. What has been done to mitigate adverse influence and impacts on the surrounding properties. I already heard about the wellhead. That is obviously a point of concern. And then just the open space is another element, whether that be in the buffers, in the contiguous and whatnot. Traffic is certainly a concern throughout this area of the township, and so we will need to rely heavily on those studies and make sure that we're doing our best to mitigate those concerns. I think that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Dustin?
Yep.
Anything else to reinforce from what you've heard already, or anything?
Yeah. Yeah, appreciate, again, resound, reverberate, I guess, what Rich had said, and thanks for coming, and really do, like the project, have liked the project since, we had the inception of it in the sketch plan. One thing that I think, early on came into the conversation, and Lindsay touched on it with the May statements, right? We are embarking upon a form-based code in this area. So what I'm really interested in is to see, within the plan, what are we doing to try to get to that form-based code standard, right? So, having, one example is block standards, right? Those type of things. Again, also, I do want to learn more about your proposal for the path to the Spring Creek Canyon. And then just in general, overall, on the parkland requirements, the open space requirements, per density and how that all factors in, just to understand and learn more about that. That's all I have.
Okay, Tracy.
Sure. I would like to know more about the buffer yards, explaining what they are and the reason for using them and their usage.
I'm sorry, I did.
Buffer yards.
Buffer, okay.
Yes.
Let me interrupt for just a second. You received a copy of Lindsay's memo dated January 31st. Do they have that?
And if they looked at the agenda, yeah, they should have it.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Tracy.
I think that's my only question.
Okay. I want to reiterate what Rich said. We like this. This is why we tried to find a way, and we thought conditional use was, what we've come up with was the best path forward. But we're gonna kind of learn a little bit as we go through this, because we don't get a lot of experience in conditional use. We've had it on the books for quite some time, but in all the years I've been here, we've only used it a couple of different times. Excuse me. Lindsay's memo identified 4 areas that staff would like to get on the record as liking to have some more discussion, maybe getting some more clarification, and that was spacing, buffer yards, block standards, and frontage. Okay, and that should be in the memo. And then what I heard today from other council members was a little bit more information needed, maybe some discussion on open space, the PRD as it applies, or the wellhead, PRD in the area of the wellheads, just density overall, perimeter fencing, how this development, now we're overlapping into the second subject here of our PRD, but I don't think there's any way around it. I think it's most efficient maybe to deal with them collectively. Okay. How form-based code consistent with our, how this development might be consistent where possible and practical with what we're trying to achieve in form-based code, and a little bit more on the off-site improvement that you referenced in your today, which I'm assuming is what Dustin was referring to, in particular, the extent of that and how much of that is off-site, because the property does abut Shiloh, right? Mm-hmm. So there would be some sidewalk requirements allowed anyway, required anyways.
Correct.
What you're referring to is beyond that, I assume?
Correct.
Okay, having heard those, and I can go through them again, give you an opportunity to respond, clarify.
Yeah, why don't we?
No, Mr. Chair, there was one item that was also referenced,
Yes.
had to do with traffic in the area.
I'm sorry, yes, the big one. Off-site traffic. And you heard that we heard a little bit about that in the first public hearing. So, do you want me to list
Do we have
that?
no, I think we got them down here. Do we have a copy of the site plan, Lindsay? Did we put up on the screen? It would have been one of the exhibits that we use.
And feel free to group any of those together.
Yeah, we'll just go through. I have my notes here. We'll try to hit those while she's getting those up. So let's go through. Try to hit this.
When Lizzie gets it, it's actually on the zone. It's on the matrix.
Before you gentlemen get started, just a reference, there should be a expandable pointer
Yeah.
somewhere, and that will be more efficient than trying to use a laser pointer.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Okay, so let's try to go through some of the items as we go through here. So, because this is now on the screen, we have the proposed development. This would be sheet number 4 of Exhibit 5, right?
4.
Sheet 4? Yeah, sheet 4 of Exhibit 5 that you have. So just kind of refresh everybody of kind of what we're showing on here. Maybe just start off, outline the property, the various phases and stuff.
Thank you for making that a little bit larger. So I'll try to speak loud so that everyone can hear me. So basically this is the project. It's about 48 acres along Shiloh Road. You can see it's broken up into various lots. Each lot will have its own specific use and density. So I'll try to tackle...
Excuse me, are you picking up the audio okay? Okay.
Okay, I'm trying to speak loud.
Because that microphone does come loose.
Yeah, it does
Oh, it
come
does?
up.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, so what we have, I think on the PowerPoint that I have for the open space requirement, if we could, I don't know if we have that handy, but I believe the open space requirement is 12 acres and we are providing about 12.8. Now, part of that calculation, we actually originally had the basins included in that open space calculation, but since we were meeting what the regulations are, we actually pulled those out. So as far as meeting the open space, we have met that requirement. Active open space, we are providing, walking path around the perimeter as far as we can. So there's a walking path here, kind of wraps around. Basically, it goes around the perimeter of the property, eventually over here, and then back up to this quadrant here. Part of that other active open space, we have a large community area with a clubhouse and pool facility. So that is provided. There's a shared use path running parallel with Pleasant Point Drive, and that will ultimately connect Beckham Boulevard down to Shiloh as well.
And Rob, just so we're clear, the open space in the middle, that where we have the building facility, pickle, what are those?
Pickleball.
Yeah. That appears to be almost 3 acres, correct?
Yeah, I think it's like 2.7, something like that.
Just to get a perspective of the area that part is, it's almost a 3-acre tract in the middle is the primary recreational open space area that we're talking about.
And I believe we do have an open space plan, which will clearly define the open space areas. I think it's sheet 20? One of your 21?
Yes, sheet 20.
Yeah, so we could clearly, on this plan here, we do, actually, as part of the other open space, and I forgot about this, we are having, in between these two large apartment buildings, we are having a community gathering space as well as a dog park. And there is also in a couple other community open space areas. All right, I'm trying to track this here. Actually, over in this area where we have the fee simple townhomes, that'll be another community gathering space, as well as behind one of the apartment buildings over on this side. So it's just an area where residents from the community can get together. They could have picnics, kind of hang out, do what they want to do, just for like a communal area.
And the chart is at the corner. We just zoom down to the chart. It's in the corner of this sheet, the upper left. Maybe blow that up. All right, why don't you just go through those numbers?
Yeah, so the required open space at 30% of 42 acres, approximately 42 acres, is about, let's call it 12 and a half acres. And we are actually proposing 12.8. So you can see that we're clearly meeting that requirement. And then as far as the active open space, we are providing almost 8 acres there as active.
What's the difference between active open space and open space?
It would be like the walking paths, any type of like the you know, where they could actually get more physical type of exercise.
Pickleball courts.
Pickleball courts, everything like that.
Okay. All right, so,
Matt?
yeah, I just asked questions on the open space now, we got this.
Yeah, I do have a
The
question.
question you had mentioned during one of the issues was the open space included the community recreation center. So that would be a structure, correct?
Yeah, so there is a community, like a clubhouse.
Yeah.
Which will have, I don't know the particulars on that, on what's inside. But the clubhouse area is approximately about 10,000 square feet, so it's a
Okay.
pretty large building, and that'll be located, centrally located within the entire PRD.
And so just for my education, is the structure considered part of the open space? And
Yes.
does that meet the requirements for open space, a
Yes.
structure inside that space? That's very helpful, thank you.
Other open space?
Yeah, I just had a question. Mine was kind of thinking about density-wise, right? Not necessarily, because I know the ordinance says, hey, it should be this percentage of the acreage, right? However, we have a lot more people living here than probably we would in other spaces. So if every unit was filled, how many people maximum could be in this area? And does the open space actually complement, a high percentage of those people all being able to utilize it? That's where I'm going with it.
So we're crossing over a little bit into density, but that's a good segue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
620 units.
Well, obviously, you have 620 units,
Yeah.
so 2 per unit would be 1,300.
Yeah.
Could probably be more than that, some may have 3, some may have 1.
Yeah.
So I would say 1,500 is probably total build out, at the end of the day. That would
Okay.
probably be a close number to maximum. Sometimes 1,500.
Okay.
It's hard to tell who would actually be there, but that's probably reasonable.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, and if anybody else has open space, we can go back to that. My concern on that is, does the open space, yes, it meets the ordinance, it meets the requirements, but does it accommodate, that maximum density, right, of 1,500 folks?
Right.
Yeah, and if I remember from the one planning commission member, I think originally the clubhouse size was 6,000? I think it was like 6,000, square feet. And I believe he had that same concern, like the clubhouse seemed a little small for that size density. So we, as a development team, we came back and then, decided roughly a 10,000 square foot, clubhouse area would provide the adequate, space.
Adam?
I do have a question. With respect to, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that you had stated that the pedestrian path or the walkway around the facility is part of this calculation. Have you calculated the proposal that we heard this evening on fee in lieu component or element as part of the acreage that we're talking about here?
No.
No.
Okay, so that proposal would be in addition to what we're viewing now.
That's correct. And that's one of the reasons why the condition was related to recreation. That's certainly one of the areas where we heard some concerns, and certainly the question of a lot of people going in there, as you said, though, Mr. Best, about where to go through with that. That's going to provide the pathway off-site, going away from the property for the connectivity across I-99. Well, we stop at 99. It's going to be an issue crossing.
You can keep going.
Yeah, you can keep walking.
No, you can.
I've been through that. But then immediately cross over, you got the park and the ganglands immediately open. So we're providing a safe transit to get there as part of the extra, which will eventually be put in. So that would be extra. We didn't calculate that area. We could, but it's not within this one. So I don't think it's really, we don't use it to meet the ordinance. That's why it's a condition.
Yep, thank you.
So, Rich?
Yeah, just two questions. On your breakdown of the 12.8, showed phase 1, phase 2. Can you show what falls into each of those, just roughly on the site plan?
Sure. This again. So your question is for phase 1 and phase 2?
Yeah, what is being included in phase 1, what is being included in phase 2?
Sure. So for phase 1, it's actually a large portion of the overall development. So phase 1 will basically be Beckham Boulevard coming up to the intersection with Pleasant Point Drive, and then making the connection all the way out to the existing Pleasant Point Drive. It will also include the 64 townhome units in this area, the 55 townhomes in this area, these two apartment buildings, as well as the entire clubhouse facility. So predominantly, I'd say during phase one, you're going to have a large portion of the open space, provided for. So you're going to have this community area over here. You'll have all of these amenities as far as the clubhouse facilities right in this area, and then yeah, the path is I'd say predominantly is going to be part of phase two. So that's going to, I mean, we could do a portion of it during phase one, maybe this portion, but the bulk of it for phase two is going to wrap around this backside of the facility. So unfortunately, I mean, we have the gas line here, the Columbia gas line. So getting a walking path in that area is very, very challenging. So, and then just looking at the grades, they will not allow any grading at all or any type of walkway in that area. So.
Okay, and the second was, it seems that you've got centralized open space, and there's value in having larger, we've been from both extremes, where you had a postage stamp and they called it open space to, large fields and everything. But there is, pocket parks, basically. Is there any opportunities for that in the plan, or how would you see any of those, that there would be smaller gathering spaces, not hundreds but tens?
Yeah, I mean, looking at how the community gathering spaces are spread out, there's a smaller one here for these. I mean, they're available for all the residents. However, predominantly, I think it may be just these residents going in that area. So they are going to be spread out. So each area will have its own little kind of community gathering area. So that was the purpose of spreading those facilities out.
Thank you for expanding on that. And just confirming once again that the 12.8 does not include any of the catch basins.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so, Tracy? All right, that was open space, kind of segued into density.
Let's get to the density next.
Okay.
All right, so the density calculation is shown, so I'm trying to find it. It's on this page? Density calc.
Yeah, I don't remember offhand. But I do believe if you look at the ordinances, I mean, the densities that are, I guess, required in there, or, is that right there?
You can have,
Okay.
I have the answer.
What's that?
Our density, duplex can be 16 dwelling units per acre, townhomes 22 dwellings per acre, and multifamily is 36 dwelling.
Okay, okay, that's what I thought. So I think if you add everything up, and if we could look at my PowerPoint, I do have that density breakdown on that, which would clearly show that we are actually way under the allowable densities. I don't know, do you have that PowerPoint?
It's,
There we
put it
go.
up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a paper copy of this. I thought we'd hand it out afterwards, but would you like to see it now?
No, I think that,
What's that?
It's not in this book.
No.
Yeah, that might be helpful.
Okay.
So sheet 7, Lindsay, I think is the zoning breakdown, the metrics.
I think for the purpose of tonight, we've identified a desire to see when we get to the second piece of this, which is the land development plan. We'll
Thank
be
you.
looking at allowed density versus proposed density and where it's located in reference to the other elements.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're hearing in general tonight when it comes to density.
So basically, just looking at this breakdown here, looking at the multifamily at 36 dwelling units per acre, We're actually, that density comes out to about 846 units, so, which is quite substantial. And then the townhomes is 22 dwelling units per acre. So that has a yield of 264. So our proposal for multifamily is 504, and the townhomes are 119. So you can see that we're clearly, way below what the densities are as far as the allowable ones.
You must put this in as an exhibit. If you could mark this in, since we're looking at it now.
Yeah.
That would be exhibit number. Yeah, whatever the next number is.
I hope you're keeping track, because I'm not.
I have 1-13.
All right. Any other density questions? Anything we want to get out there on the table?
Just a question, maybe it's more for staff, we're indicating required versus allowed. Is there a floor required in this zoning?
The numbers I read are maximums.
Right, but there is no floor. There's no
Well,
bottom.
there are minimums,
But that's what I'm trying to get at, is there?
right? As
So in
far
a-
as the lot, go ahead, Lindsay.
In a PRD, there may be no minimum area requirements for individual lots or building sites. And then the following are the maximum numbers for dwelling units per gross acre. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Well, but the PRBD district is a minimum of 35 acres.
Yes.
Acreage, I'm talking density.
Okay.
Dwelling units.
All right. I stand corrected.
Okay,
but-
so there is no floor for dwelling units. Okay, very good.
Not that I can find right now, Rich.
Okay, very good.
I have a question. I don't know if it relates to density, but it's height. So right now, height is...
Maybe under form-based code?
Okay, let's wait on form-based code. Let's keep it there. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, if you guys are ready.
Yeah.
It appears we're good on density, but I kind of sense that the question that came up about the wellhead protection is probably related to density proximity to wellhead, so maybe that would be,
That'd be the next thing we're gonna get.
Yeah.
Get right to that.
Okay.
If we could have sheet 2, the LD plans up, or the 30 plans.
Did you place those in your slideshow,
No.
Rocky?
No,
Okay.
it's like-
All right, give me 1 second.
And what I'd like you to do, when we see it, just kind of point out, there's, on sheet 2, there's an outline which shows the required distance. Talk about what's there is, what that means.
Right.
And then what's not being located in there, and then what is being located in there.
Right.
So we have sheet 2 up here now.
So yeah, so the wellhead protection zone is roughly, it's 1,200 feet from the well. So you could see this arc here running through the property. That is the wellhead protection zone. So part of, if you remember from the original sketch that we came in with, we actually had several stormwater management basins located within the wellhead protection zone. We actually looked at the requirements of that, and while it is allowed, it's challenging to meet. So, so what we did on the secondary design, what you see now is actually push those stormwater management areas outside of the wellhead protection zone. So, and you could see, well, from the other plans, there's a large basin over in this area and a basin over in this area. So yeah, so those are clearly out of the wellhead protection zone. And as far as the construction techniques, what I believe the development team has consulted with the geotech, and as far as any mass grading, excavation work, they are planning to have a geo on site, kind of monitoring that excavation work, keeping track of, any type of, impact to any fractures of the wellhead area. So,
Adam?
Finish up, Sue.
Could you define what geo means?
geotechnical engineer.
Thank you. And that person will be on site?
Maybe not all the time, but they are going to be contracted to come out.
Just a clarification, that's a requirement, right, in the wellhead?
Well, not necessarily who's on site per se, but the techniques that are going to be utilized. And I did have a follow-up question to that, if I may. Is there any blasting that is anticipated?
No, there's no blasting, and that's, well, I should say there's no blasting within the wellhead protection zone. And that is a requirement in that zone, that no blasting is permitted within that zone.
Will there be blasting outside of the zone?
I guess that depends on the geotechnical analysis. When we're looking at, what's the depth to bedrock in these other areas. I mean, I think at that point they'll have to do an analysis to see the best methods there for construction.
Thank you.
Anything else on the wellhead?
The only other thing that I would say, regardless, and you're correct, no blasting within the actual wellhead protection zone. Regardless, though, I do think that that's any blasting that may occur on the site in conjunction with the project would likely simply need to be coordinated with the College Township Water Authority engineers.
Yep.
I think that, because that is something that we have attempted to closely monitor, not on this site in particular, but elsewhere within the vicinity. Thank you.
That's actually a very good condition, by the way, to put on the commission's decision, so it's memorialized.
Did we just do that?
Yeah, not yet.
Well, not yet, but it's.
I wrote it down.
All right, we'll summarize it again. Thanks for the tip.
The next one we have is, I noticed, perimeter requirements.
Yeah. And the idea is, then we will segue into Dustin's questions about consistency with form-based code, because then that would take us into block standard spacing, buffer yards, and some of the things in Lindsay's memo. So start with perimeter.
Okay, so maybe put up the sheet with, I think it's the next sheet. Should have a whole, oops, no, one more.
Actually, Lindsay, if you go to maybe sheet 20.
20? Okay.
Again, I believe it might be on that sheet. Open space, or is there a landscaping? Oh, okay, 21, sheet 21, yeah.
Got it.
Okay, yeah, good. What shows what's going on here?
Yeah, so basically with the buffer yards, we are proposing a buffer yard on this western property line, and that is primarily because of the uses. So it's so our development is against an agricultural zone, so it's a different use. Now this area here, on to the south of the property, it's the same use. While it's a different zone, it is the same use. It's a residential use. So there's no buffer yard that is required. I will add, though, this right-of-way easement by Columbia Gas is about 50 feet wide. And again, we can't have any plantings in that area. They kind of maintain that. So this actually in itself is almost acting as a buffer. I don't know if they ever mow it, but yeah, but in this area here, it is 50 feet wide, acting as a buffer. On that southern
landscaping sort of at the end of the parking on the left. It's hard to see on that plan. Sort of like we're around the drive aisles, and it's kind of the stub turnaround.
Yeah, should be.
Yeah, let's point that out. So there's landscaping put in those areas outside the easement area.
Right. Yeah, so we are providing landscaping, at the lower half of these of the cartway here, in these three, points of, I guess, turnaround areas.
And this will be the side of the development that faces Trout Road, correct?
Yes.
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 Yes. So this would be the side that is across the street from Independence Place. There were resident concerns about traffic and impact on their neighborhood. So without a buffer yard there, that might create, it might make it more challenging in terms of noise and.
Yeah, are these facilities, I'm not familiar, are these Independence Place or?
The ones immediately to what I'm going to call the south.
Yeah.
Those are Evergreen Heights
Okay,
and
all right.
Pleasant Point itself.
Okay.
those properties, but the separation is the actual utility right-of-way,
Okay.
the gas.
Yeah.
All right.
And just a quick follow-up on that. There is a utility easement, but it's not a right-of-way. I mean, it's your property, right? So you say you don't know if they mow it. I mean, you could, if it's your property, you probably have to maintain it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look at the particulars of that document, but I mean, it's controlled by Columbia, so.
What you can and can't do is control, but my guess is that you would still, if there was grass mowing, you would do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there was any, like, if they failed to do that and the tree would start growing in, the company could come in and clear it.
Okay. So we would be interested, it sounds like, in knowing what Columbia Gas allows in that easement.
Do you
Just
happen
for-
to know that, Don?
Don't need to know it tonight. I think that's what I heard.
I don't think they're gonna allow any maintenance beyond mowing.
Right,
Okay.
right, yeah.
Anything that would even possibly be disturbing, they're not gonna permit. Columbia Gas, that is.
Just
Yeah.
grasses.
Yeah.
Just grasses. Yeah, I know I had conversation with them on, if we could do like slight grading over there, and there's nothing we can't do any grading, even though it would be minimal. So that's basically what I call a no-go area.
Could be 6-foot ornamental grasses, right? Just kidding. Go ahead.
They probably would cut those down. All right, is that good for the kind of the perimeter landscaping questions?
Let's see. Anybody have questions? Need more information on that? Perimeter and landscape. What we heard was, since there's no, and buffer, we weave buffer yards in there.
Yeah,
Because the zoning districts are the same, there's no required buffer,
that's correct.
adjacent zoning districts. And of course, the easement is limiting what you can do on that side.
And if you look at the front, I mean, if you're looking for buffers in the front, kind of shift it over. There is landscaping along Shiloh. We have something up there? Like some circles?
Yeah, it's along the main thoroughway coming in, we are showing, street trees in that area. So that'll be part of the overall landscape.
I was just looking at that area there, the townhomes, just to the lower right. The image is a little bit cut off, so it doesn't take us all the way to the easement. Just looking at how close, okay.
Adam?
Yeah, with respect to your property boundary along Shiloh Road, can you speak to what those grades are like?
Sure. Maybe Lindsay, maybe
Well,
six?
I mean, I don't know that we need to be, right, they're
Yeah, they're
steep. So I think that one of the things when we're talking about potential landscaping and buffer, one of the things to keep in mind for council is that all of that frontage along Shiloh Road is essentially very steep.
It's steep going up.
Get steep
into the
going,
property.
right, exactly. And so that also is going to impact, and I'm sorry, I don't know the road name offhand. Beckham. That's going to be, I don't want to call it hidden, it's not going to be hidden, but there's clearly going to be a visual there where the road is going to appear to be lower than the surrounding grade along the rest of Shiloh Road.
That's correct.
So one of the things for council to bear in mind is when it comes time to talk about landscaping, those types of things, there may be some limitations that we typically don't deal with simply because of the significance of that grade. So, just wanted to point that out.
So sight lines for the entrance to the development.
Are going to be a concern, yeah. I mean, they've been accounted for, certainly, but those are definitely going to be some considerations.
Okay. Since have dived into elements on site, landscaping and that, maybe it'd be a good time to segue into what elements you anticipate would be consistent with the form-based code that we're trying to move forward in that area, spacing, block standards, we heard height. Dustin, do you have any specifics?
No, yeah, just in general, yeah.
And just in general, you know, we haven't started down that road.
Yeah, I must admit, I don't have the form-based standards, or, I mean,
Well, let's just
I'm
say,
confused with form-based code, what you mean by that, but.
let's just put it this way then, we're gonna be looking at it as we move through the process at what we anticipate will be the build-out under form-based code and seeing where it makes sense and where it's reasonable to weave elements of form-based code into this, in general. I don't know unless we have something specific in mind now.
Go ahead, John, you have something to say.
Because I'm John Sepp from Pantera. I had been working on this project early on with the staff when form-based code was being worked on along with the origins of this plan. And I could just point out some of the things that we need as far as form-based code. We do have on-street parking. That was one of the desires and elements of form-based code. The walkway around the site was another form-based code element that was considered. Parking behind the buildings and the buildings being pushed toward the front of the project. You could see these apartment buildings are right, you know, off the sidewalk with the on-street parking in front of them. This building here hides the parking behind the building. Likewise, these two apartment buildings have the parking in the rear as well. The townhomes have garages with accesses off the rear and a sidewalk along the front of them. So I believe all those elements have the spirit of your form-based zone built into them. And we did work with staff and made adjustments very early on in the project to take those into consideration.
Thank you for those rear-loaded garages.
And actually, that was actually before form-based zone. Burkentine wanted to have that to start with, so.
That's a really nice design element. It'll make a big difference.
Thanks, John.
Questions on those elements or other elements?
The only question that I had.
Somebody had height.
I did. So in the memo that we've been referencing, development should not exceed the maximum height permitted in the adjoining residential district. It should not. So, you know, I'm not clear. I know we have a number of units in those apartment buildings already established, which means height has already been established. How many stories will those be?
Yeah, so there's actually two concepts for the apartment buildings. So there's so the ones along Shiloh Road will be about 3 stories,
Okay.
and then the bulk, the larger apartment complex will be 4-story units.
4 stories, okay.
4 stories.
Great, thank you.
To clarify, the phase 2 apartment complex or the 4-story?
Correct.
Oh, okay, and what about the phase 3?
Just two
Two
phases.
phases.
Oh, phase 2. Okay, all right. So phase 2 are the ones in the top left?
That's correct.
Okay, those are the ones that I was I was more interested in those. I knew those were going to be the taller buildings.
Right.
And those will be 4 stories. Okay, great.
So to Susan's point, right, so Evergreen Commons is directly south is one of them. How
And that's
high are
3.
those?
3.
I believe those are,
35, right?
I think 45. I think they were able to go
Are
up
those
in
four?
height, yeah.
They got another floor, that's right.
Yeah.
But they
45.
won't be 6 and 8 stories.
These units
Right,
here? No, so these units here will be the 3-story units, and these will be part of phase 1. And then the units back here, they'll all be 4 stories, and that'll be part of phase 2. And actually, phase 2, because there's 7 buildings back there, that's going to be broken down into sub-phases. So I think first we're going to do these 2 buildings, and then that'll be like 2A, and then I think these 2 will be 2B, and then consequently 2C. So trying to kind of stage those buildings as they need them.
There is a chart analysis of the building heights on sheet 9.
Thank you.
Looking at that detail we show on there. Sorry, I put the plans.
The plans, okay. Yeah.
All right. Questions, comments on elements of the plan and how they may or may not be consistent with form-based code? Alan?
Well, I do have, related to the height question, just to help create a picture here. The elements of the grade of this site overall, from south to north, clearly the northern sections, the top sections of the property are much higher or significantly higher than the southern portions of the property down along where that utility right-of-way easement is located. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I'd say the high point of the property is somewhere along this area. There's actually several high points. It's kind of like a saddle. So we do have a high point actually over in this area and then over in this area here. So the townhome units, I believe they're going to be about 3 stories or 2.5, something like that. So they're well within the limit. That's normal construction. And then there is, because of the grade change, essentially from the high point to the low point, it's about 80 feet. So substantial grade change across this property. Part of that, we are going to have a large retaining wall here. It'll be about 20 feet high, which would, so what we're trying to do is keep this area as, not as level as we can, but generally as level as we can. So just ensuring that we meet all the ADA requirements. These buildings will also have elevators, so they can't have any steps in the buildings as from, like across this way. So, trying to keep that area as level as we can. That was the intent of that, of this whole complex. And then that'll ultimately be part of phase 2 when we, come in with those plans in, several years.
Anything else on that subject? The only thing I had really left on my list that we hadn't touched on was the offer to build that off-site improvement on Shiloh Road.
PowerPoint? You want to get, do we get an aerial?
Yeah, I think I have an aerial image in there. Yeah, it's not the greatest, but it's still an image. Yeah, should be the next one maybe. Yeah, okay, that's not the greatest, but we will work with it. So what we looked at, I'm just trying to get my bearings here. So this is approximately this area in lavender color. That's the parcel. So the offer that's under consideration now is to.
I think it's in your
I'm just gonna try to blow it up.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Thanks.
So we looked at from the property line.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll get there.
That's okay. All right.
There we go. Blow it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think that'll be okay. So we looked at roughly from the property line north to the I-99 overpass bridge. It's about, I think, 1,200 to 1,400 feet long, so something like that. So just doing the math on that, that's where Burkentine came up with roughly about $8,400 as a contribution to, once the Shiloh Road whole corridor improvement work, occurs, funding would be available to help, contribute towards that shared use path, which would ultimately get you over into Spring Creek Canyon.
All right, I could ask the obvious question. Did you say $8,400?
Yeah.
Okay. Does
That's
that
basically
actually,
square foot or lineal foot calculation of sidewalk or pathway, yeah.
okay. We certainly appreciate the offer. I just have to wonder how much path $8,400 can buy. I'm looking at staff. And this is not meant as a slight. We're very interested in the offer, but since you brought up that number, it bears.
It sounds low.
Pardon me?
Sounds low. For 1,200 feet of path?
Okay. So we can work on that. I mean, I think what you've heard is that's in the plan. You know, one way or another, that's what we want to have included in that corridor. And it's certainly working with you to accomplish it to whatever degree we can through this project will be of interest.
The important part of that was that we don't have the responsibility to actually construct it.
Yeah, understood.
Dedicated to it.
So it's really a funding issue. The idea is that there'd be a feeling of doing it.
And just process-wise, getting ahead a little bit, would that be money held in escrow?
Yeah, that's the way we've done that in essence before. We typically do insert that into our budget documents, and those are actually listed as reserved for those purposes.
Okay. And you did mention early on that the inevitable Shiloh Road project, and we hope that it happens in a couple of years. In fact, sooner the better from our standpoint. Questions on that or any other, anything else related to that offer?
Nothing to that offer specifically, and do appreciate the intention to work on helping us make that path. There were conversations at our previous conditional use hearing from residents of Independence Place regarding traffic impact, and so.
Yeah. Let's close out on this because
Okay.
that is the remaining issue.
Okay. I'll bring that up in the meeting.
So that concludes my notes from tonight. Did you have anything else on your list that?
No, I think we hit everything. I wrote office down.
Office?
Maybe that was off-site.
I wrote office down. I think we covered everything pretty much in order.
At the previous public hearing, the concern about the traffic, off-site traffic, the impact off-site of traffic, of people finding the most direct way from point A to point B, you being point A, point B being where they want to go. We don't have any solutions, but certainly we're going to be trying, as we work through this process collaboratively, I think it's fair to say we're all going to be looking for suggestions or ways to mitigate what we heard at the previous public hearing. So I don't expect a response or an answer tonight unless you have some thoughts, but we wanted to make sure that we reiterated tonight what we heard at the first public hearing, because it is a genuine concern. It's not necessarily a concern for you normally under this land development plan, but this is a conditional use. So we want to make sure that we cover all of our concerns as part of this exercise. Any other additional thoughts on what we heard at the last public hearing from anyone here? Staff, Adam or Lindsay?
No.
All right.
No, I have nothing specific other than it's an area of concern.
Yeah. So, in response, if you feel comfortable saying anything, this is a process. We're going to discuss. We're going to have an agenda item discussion. We're going to get back together. So we have time.
Well, I know there's obviously a PennDOT process that's going on right now, which will consider this improvement, to the property as part of the traffic improvements that are necessary, whether there's turning lanes or traffic signals, whatever comes into play, that's really part of the PennDOT process.
Well, I think what we were talking about specifically was cut-through traffic from this property through adjacent sites. And again, this is 2 sites away from this site. but it's something that we have to deal with, and, you know, this is a conditional use process, so.
All right, so there'll be public streets, I guess we're not proposing public streets. So the good thing with that is we can deal with it as the project develops, as it goes through. Whether there's signage is necessary, whether you put speed bumps up or something along those lines if necessary, because they will be public streets. And you really won't know the impact until people live there, right? We could talk about where we think they're gonna go, but only the patterns develop once people actually live there. So I think it's gonna be dynamic. You know, as phase one goes in, you're gonna see how people are using that, and do we have problems? How do we deal with that? Maybe in phase 2A, you start having a discussion about, are there any impacts we can do to monitor that? So it's challenging right now to do it in the abstract without knowing the travel paths of people who, the road's not there,
Well,
people are moving. So
I understand.
yeah, so I think it's something that we keep on discussion as the phases go on, and just keep an eye on it. It's probably the best thing. In other words, we don't close the topic, I think is what we're saying now. But as the project goes on over the years, we keep on it.
Yeah, and you're right, we will continue to talk about this, and I think, I don't disagree with you, but from our standpoint, two things. There's a property in between this one and the property affected, so the pattern's already there. So we're gonna add an incremental impact to that pattern. They've already figured out ahead of time the quickest route from A to B. We're just adding more people wanting to go from A to B upstream of that path. So that's point number one. And point number two is maybe, just maybe, there are some design strategies, you know, within this development that can help mitigate that, you know, even on-site. I don't know what they are, maybe they aren't, but we're gonna be spending some time noodling on that, and maybe you could too.
Sure.
Adam?
Just to staff, do we have a traffic analysis or anything relative at this point in time in hand, relative to the property itself?
No.
Okay.
You know, maybe it's a write-in, I don't know. We want to just get it out there.
Sure.
And ask everybody to sharpen their pencil and see if there's something we can do, you know, together as part of this negotiating, give and take process.
Proactively versus reactively.
Yeah, you had some good reactive approaches there, but we are.
You have to do both. I mean,
Yes.
you're gonna have to be reactive somewhat, because
Yes.
you can't predict future patterns, I guess.
Anyone else? No? Anybody else? Anything in closing? We're going to close this public hearing after,
Yeah.
and then we're going to open the next
Yeah.
one, which I think is going to be pretty short.
Yep, it's gonna be pretty short.
Okay.
All right, so we covered a lot of ground today, which was good. We had a lot of questions. You obviously had time to think about it, which was the whole purpose of the delay. You know, separation between the hearings, and you could digest all the information we presented at the first hearing. We go through with this. As I see it, I don't see any major impediments. It appears to be general support for the project. I haven't heard anything that none of the ordinance standards are not met, which is what I thought when we were presenting. We met your ordinance. And that's really what the conditional use is about. You know, it's a special time we can process, as opposed to the normal land development plan where there's no hearing, there's no opportunity to discuss. You have that process, where you can have public comment, you have extra standards that come into play for the conditional use. And of course, we went through all of those standards, and they are somewhat overlapping with the PRD standards, the way your ordinance is structured on here. So I think when you look at this, we really have, I believe, met the standards of the conditional use. Once we meet the standards, the next step is, you know, really, is there anything unexpected that's being generated from this project that you didn't anticipate before when you're normally coming in? Obviously, we're building a project. We're putting people here that's going to be impervious. So we anticipate stormwater. We anticipate traffic. We anticipate the need for buffers. We anticipate the need for landscape. What conditions are for is really things that are not anticipated for something like along this size. And that's where we really came in. The only thing we could come up with was, maybe we need a little bit more recreation area, this connectivity to bring people to the rest of the community, and that's why we posited that we would have the connection offer going towards I-99 and some recreation areas in there. And that's really to help offset one of the, the extra impact that this development may have if we're putting about 1,500 people here going forth on that. Other than that, of course, we can have a discussion about other conditions on there, but the law's pretty clear what you can put on there and what we can't put on there once we need it. It's not a free-for-all for all sorts of conditions, but we want to have a viable discussion because this project is not just we're coming in and leaving. This is a long-term project, so it's going to come in over time, and we, of course, want to work with you, and we want to have the flexibility to react to things as they come in. I think that really makes a lot of sense. Again, we can try to proactively come up with stuff, but a phased development of this magnitude over time, it's not a one-shot deal. And we will be coming in with phases, and there will be an opportunity to address, I think, the concerns that come up. Hopefully there won't be any concerns. I think that's probably unrealistic to think that nothing will ever come up. No one will ever have a question. But we don't think there'll be anything bad coming up. But I think we'll have the opportunity to address those going forward. And that really is maybe kind of the best condition that we can put on here, is to keep the opportunity open as we come in on the later phases, that we can look back at these issues. Say, listen, we've addressed the buffers and the landscaping. How's it working now? Do we need to do more or do less, or is it working out okay? That's going to help the developer to make sure that they have a viable product. If they want it to work. It's going to help the community, of course, that you want to offset anything going forward. So with that, I think we close the testimony, and it's really going to be up for you guys to decide what you want to do with it. And I know later on we're going to have some more discussion. I think we covered a lot of ground already, but I think we'll have some more discussion, and it's really up for you guys to decide, how you want us to move forward with this.
Very good closing argument there, Counselor. Before we close the hearing, though, I just want to review very quickly, recap what I thought I heard tonight in the room from folks. Open space, we heard discussion about open space, the total, how it was going to be staged. And again, I'm bringing these up as we move through the exercise that we'll be going through over the next couple of weeks, maybe a meeting or two. And in particular, we heard we'll be looking at how open space relates to density, proportionate to density, I guess might be the best way to phrase it. And I thought about maybe an example from one of your other properties might be helpful, or another local property. I think what we were trying to determine here was adequacy of open space as compared to density. And then a little bit more specifically on density, and these are simple math exercises, clarification on allowed versus proposed, and more specifically how density relates or is placed in the wellhead area. And then under the wellhead area, two things: what would be located in the, when we get into the land development plan, what will be located in the wellhead area, and what kind of activities will be going on there with what's located, and also what kind of activities would be going on in there during construction. Then perimeter fencing, I think we got all of our questions answered there. I don't know that we'll be need to explore that as part of this exercise. But what I did hear tonight was, and this ties back to what John said, and it ties back to your closing argument on what we can or cannot do legally under conditional use. This plan came to us, and we were thinking, well, we got form-based code here coming, let's just wait, and that will ensure that we'll get the area developed, consistent with our vision. Well, we, in an effort to be good partners, said, well, we found a way that will allow you to move forward, with this project while we figure out form-based code. So that's why we're going to be paying attention to what can or cannot reasonably be done as part of the conditional use process and the plan that'll be consistent with that vision. I realize that we do have limitations legally, but we also thought we came to the table as good partners with John early on in going down this road, which is much harder. But I think it was, and I think we all believe, was the right thing to do. And then lastly, excuse me, the off-site traffic. Again, that's outside the scope of what we can legally require, but I think it's in the spirit of some discussion and some good faith efforts on both parties to figure out what we can do there. I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that effort is unreasonable. I think that's what you heard. I think that's what council is suggesting and what staff is suggesting. So those would be my closing comments. Did I miss anything? For the record, anything, staff, anybody? I think we'll need to, before we formally close this, Louis, we will need to agree on a date.
Yes, I think while we're still on the record.
Sorry, you may also want to ask for public comment.
Well, I thought I did before, but we could go back again, having heard what we heard. I still have the same
Those
names.
people, they don't supposed to raise their hand.
Yeah, I can go through those same names again, or we can just, you
How
can
do you
just
raise hands?
raise your hand. Having not desired to make public comment early, do you have any, you're getting a second chance here. All right, quickly online for the record.
I don't see any hands raised.
Anyone online wish to address council as part of this public hearing?
There's Ed.
All right, we'll go back.
Ed.
I'm giving them a chance here. No? All right, back to the room. Ed, you'll have to come up and identify yourself for the record.
My name's Ed Garrett. I'm a resident of College Township. I'm also on the Planning Commission of College Township. This plan's been discussed in front of the Planning Commission. I know we all have concerns concerning the traffic impact that Shiloh Road may have. We know that now PennDOT is doing a complete traffic study because this is not the only development that is being done on Shiloh Road. We have a hotel, we have another subdivision that has been approved. So there's multiple projects up in that area that is now being developed. So looking at traffic that may cut through this neighborhood, I think the developer made a very good point saying we're not going to know what the patterns are until it's built out and people start to live there. We already have a congested area of Shiloh Road now. There is a traffic study being done. There probably will be synchronized red lights there. The other people doing developments up there are going to have to make some turning lanes and some other things as this gets completed. So as the Planning Commission, we said there may be a total agreement between all the developers up there to help pay for the improvements that PennDOT may come back with, instead of lumping it on one individual or two individual things. There could be three different parties that have to pay for this, and then they can do a joint agreement along with the township, so on and so forth, that this gets done. Surety will be put up as it gets done to make sure the parties pay. So, you know, my big thing is looking at this project as planner in the Planning Commission. We have vetted a lot of this. The next meeting will also bring up your concerns of some conditions. Project is a big project. It will be done in phases. One thing we have to look at as a township and as a taxpayer, it's going to increase our tax base. We're going to get more tax revenue. And they're putting a lot of equity in this, just from my background as a prior credit person who provided financing. So there's a lot of equity going into the first phase because it's very front-end loaded. So that's my comments, and I think You've asked those questions, and I think they have done a very good job answering them. That's it.
Okay. Anything to follow up on Ed's comments?
Dara.
That's Dara?
Yeah, D-A-R-R-A-H.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
We need a date, right?
A date, yeah. All we're talking about is the date where they're gonna reconvene and announce it. Vote on this.
Do we have a suggested date?
Potential dates, the next time you meet is February 20th. And then you'll have 2 more meeting opportunities, March 6th and March 20th. And those are the dates that fall before the 45-day deadline.
Okay, and looking ahead to our second public hearing, that's a longer timeline, so those dates would, we want to deal with both of those dates would fit in there?
Yes,
That
they
window?
would, yeah. If you went with the 45 first, yeah.
Okay. We're setting these dates so our friends here at Bergentine can participate?
Yes.
All right, are we ruling any of those out for any reason on your end?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Staff, what do
we're
we
good
need
here.
for lead time? What's that?
Yeah, I would recommend, I think we need 1 meeting in between before this comes back to council for that type of consideration, and that would make that then March 6th?
Correct.
That would be my recommendation, but
I agree. I
subject
think to have a meeting in between will be beneficial to staff so we can get everything.
Is one enough?
It's one enough.
Well, we do a little bit of tonight, potentially.
Based on what I've heard here this evening, I believe 1 meeting in between is sufficient, but I defer.
And if something else comes up, the deadline is March 23rd, so we would still have that opportunity to review on March 20th if necessary.
So the date we're setting tonight is a planned tentative date,
Yeah.
and that works, that meets the
Yes.
requirement?
Yes.
Is there any
It's all, the only requirement is the timeline that Lindsay went over from the date of when you started.
Okay.
So we have a primary and an alternate March,
And would
basically.
the alternate be a problem, team?
March 6th or 20th is what we're saying.
Yeah?
Okay. All right. Anything else required before we close this public hearing? I'm looking to Louis. Anything else?
Lou, anything else we need to do before we close this one?
No.
All right. If there's no further comment, I will officially close the first public hearing tonight, conditional use permit for multifamily residential uses in planned residential business park district, and open the second public hearing, which is Crew 814 Planned Residential Development Tentative Plan. Again,
Good evening.
Any
Charlie
comments?
Sir, Stevens Lee. I'm here representing Berkantine. We just concluded the first public hearing. We now have the PRD, continuation of that public hearing. I believe we have covered pretty much everything that we possibly could cover under the first one, because they are really interrelated on the two. It's just 2 procedures going on here. So at this point, we really don't have anything further to add to the PRD hearing. If you have any questions, we're here to address them.
okay. I assume none of the signed up group has anything additional to offer?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's go to staff then. Again, like you said, these 2 are joined at the hip, so Adam or Lindsay, anything?
Lindsay first, sure.
So this is the public hearing for the tentative PRD plan. Council has, when you close the public hearing tonight, you'll have 60 days to come up with findings of fact and communicate, and written communication to the applicant with the findings of fact. Your options here with a PRD is to grant tentative approval. grant tentative approval with conditions or deny tentative approval. As we move forward, those 60 days take us to April 7th. And next steps for council really are to review the PRD, which I think we really got into just in the last hour. Consider.
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Oh, wow. Whew, time goes fast.
Who's counting?
And then consider statements for the conclusions and findings of fact, which are a document that needs to go and then be accepted by the applicant. And then, of course, we have some upcoming council meetings, and you're able to meet, I believe, in executive session if need be.
That's correct, and it can't be on the same night as the other 2 days you were already talking about.
Right. So I believe that some of the conditions that we talked about tonight will go hand in hand with the PRD as well. So that's really all I have.
Okay, Adam, anything else?
I had nothing to add.
All right, now, is there anything, we'll start with Tracy, anything we didn't cover that came to mind in that first one, or anything specific to the PRD?
No, I think we.
Okay. Dustin?
No.
Susan?
Nope.
Rich?
No, comfortable.
I don't have anything other than a question for staff. Is there benefit to us in staggering that? I assume there is. Let me back up. Do we have to set a date tonight before we close this public hearing on the PRD?
No, it's a statutory time.
Okay. So really what you're talking about is similar land development plan requirements. We have to act within 60 days on the PRD.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, anything else to add?
No.
All right, anybody in the audience for the second public hearing? Ed?
No.
Anybody online? So if there are no further requirements for this public hearing, the chair will close this public hearing, and we will thank everyone for their patience and participation tonight. I assume some, if not all of you, are sticking around for the agenda items, or not?
I guess I would add, we are listed as an agenda for discussion. Is that going to happen now, or?
It's.
Or are we, I mean, we covered an enormous amount of stuff here. I don't know what else we're going to talk about.
We'll say the chair will accept no action items during those agenda items, but if something comes to mind between the time we close the public hearing and that we want to discuss, yeah.
Okay, so it is an agenda item.
It is an agenda item.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
There's not much between now and it, though.
Okay, we'll stick around, thank you.
All right. All right, can we take a recess for any reason? We keep plowing ahead.
I'm ready to plow.
Ready to plow ahead? Okay.
I can go either way. I never take the break anyway, but.
All right. If I haven't already, I'm closing the second public hearing, and we'll move right into tonight's regular College Township Council meeting. And before we jump into the agenda, I'm going to ask everyone in the room who can stand, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item on the agenda is public open discussion. Anybody in the room like to address council on anything that's not already on the agenda? Anybody online like to do that? Hearing none, we'll move from public open discussion to new agenda items. Anybody here want to offer anything to add to the agenda? We do have to offer the public an opportunity to request a new agenda item. Going once, going twice. That concludes new agenda items. And the next item scheduled on the agenda is special presentations. However, the chair is going to make an adjustment here. And if you look further down into the agenda under reports, item D, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging reports, I am going to move to that agenda item now, and then we will pick up the agenda as it is, as everything is listed. I will note that with the assistant manager not here tonight, we are going to defer our monthly diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging report to the second meeting in February. However, I am going to pull item CA3, consent, the item under consent agenda, item 3A, a proclamation of the Township of College, Center County, Pennsylvania to officially recognize Black History Month, and present that now. So, if you look into our agenda, you'll see that there's a proclamation P-25-01. And tonight, Mr. Abdul has been patiently sitting through, what was it, Lindsay, an hour and a half?
Oh, yeah.
Hour and a half of public meeting, public
On the
hearing.
nose.
I am going to read this for the record, and then I believe, am I correct, do we have another copy of this?
Yes, we have a signature copy available.
So, as noted, this is the proclamation P-25-01 that I'm going to read into the record, a proclamation of the Township of College, Center County, Pennsylvania, to officially recognize Black History Month. Whereas each year, Black History Month is observed in February, and whereas the origin of Black History Month dates back to 1915 when Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded the organization known today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and whereas Black History Month is a chance to celebrate Black achievement, provide a reminder to take stock of where systemic racism persists, and give visibility to the people and organizations creating change. Whereas the theme for 2025 is African Americans in Labor, quote, African Americans in Labor, focuses on the various and profound ways that work and working of all kinds, free and unfree, skilled and unskilled, vocational and voluntary, intersect with the collective experiences of Black people. Whereas it is essential that we take note of the accomplishments, hardships, achievements, and struggles of Black Americans and take time to celebrate the immeasurable contributions of the descendants of enslaved people in our neighborhoods, our townships, our country, and our society. Now, therefore, the College Township Council does hereby proclaim the month of February 2025 as Black History Month and acknowledge the national theme of African Americans in Labor. We would like to put emphasis on the importance of being an ally to the marginalized communities, to these marginalized communities for all 365 days in a year. This proclamation authorized the 6th day of February 2025 by the College Township Council, Center County, Pennsylvania, signed by me, the chair, attested by our township secretary and manager, Adam Broombaugh. With that, Mr. Abdul, I'm going to turn the floor over to you because I understand you've been sitting here patiently. You may have a few words to offer. However, before you do that,
yes,
I just want to personally thank you for all the time that you have given personally to all the worthwhile efforts in this community as a township resident beyond just this. So with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you to the council for this proclamation. I was smiling earlier because the part of Wikipedia that I read said that the Black History Month was founded in 1925, but I've seen both dates. And yeah, I guess, you know, I got to get better at using the internet. I think Black History Month naturally encourages us to think in terms of the past. But this year in particular, we should be really talking about the present because the declaration, or the many things coming out of Washington have been filled with some very immediate threats for those who support fairness, equity, and inclusion. And I'll be honest, I was expecting more hesitation on the part of the council. You know, I was talking with Sue and I was like, well, if we can talk about it on the 20th, we'll be good to go, you know. I am thrilled to be here tonight because there is no hesitation. I say that to your credit, to your honor. It would be understandable for, and I'm sure, and actually I have been hearing rumblings in various quarters, shall we say, of agencies that want to wait, that want to see what's the next shoe that's going to drop. And there is no hesitation. I really appreciate that. You stand by these same convictions that you have always proclaimed as the council. That is to your credit, and you know, I hope it's not embarrassing to say I am thrilled to be here tonight. What you have done, strangely enough, in Pennsylvania in 2025 took courage, you know. Thank you for the proclamation. Thank you for the sentiments. And I am looking forward to continuing to working with the council and with other agencies and COG in the years to come. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Hey, stick around. Don't go anywhere yet. We've got a copy of the proclamation for you. And maybe if we have a camera.
I was gonna say, I would like to do a photo if we can.
And while we're gathering, I just want to tell you that I think I speak for this body. The DEI is alive and well here in College Township. We represent the 11,000 residents of College Township.
Yes.
And we will continue to do that as long as we possibly can. As you know, we're representing the voices. Washington can do their own thing, Harrisburg can do their own thing, but we represent College Township. And I recall you are a resident of College Township, aren't you?
Resident.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm from around here.
All right, let's.
Need to vote.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is an action item. Oh, I got ahead of myself.
I want to make a motion. You want to make a motion?
Sure.
Go.
We need a motion to approve the proclamation.
This was part of the consent agenda, so it would take action to accept it. So, Rich?
Ms. Mayor.
So, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to accept proclamation P25-01, recognizing February as Black History Month.
I
Second.
have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion needed on this motion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion, anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and if you'll stick around for just one moment.
I think y'all go.
Y'all go. Group photo.
Well, we didn't take one at the Rio.
What?
Just gonna get up here in the middle.
So we have Jen there, horses.
Everybody, come on.
Here, I'm not sure this. Yes. That's your copy.
John, you want to?
Jeez.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She must think there's no blinkers in this. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for calling. All right. Back on the agenda. It takes us a special presentation, SP1. Someone else who has been waiting patiently now for an hour and 40 minutes. The chair of our Park and Rec Committee, Dave Schulte, with our annual Park and Recs Committee report.
Good evening. My name is David Schulte. I was the chair of the Township Parks and Recreation Committee for 2024. One responsibility of the chair is to prepare an annual report. I did, it's in your packets. If somebody would actually like an actual hard copy, I have a few that I made, if you'd like that for reference purposes. Appendix A is the memorandum that documented the duties, responsibilities, and authorities of the committee. I summarized it in the report. We'll go through that. The committee is advisory and has no inherent authority. That said, the council may assign responsibilities and authorities. Members of the committee are appointed by council and shall include people who live in various neighborhoods so that they are more available to the residents. let's get this right here. Okay, Part 4 of the memo is what you should expect the committee to do. A, recommend actions concerning issues referred to the committee by council. B, request and review suggestions from residents pertaining to park use, maintenance, improvement, and additions. C, review actions concerning parkland procurements to assure that the township's residents' best interests are served. Review, develop, and alter park master plans to respond to the needs of the residents and the times. What was popular or requested 3, 5, 10 years ago may no longer be appropriate. We need to constantly reevaluate our neighbors' needs. E, develop park capital, maintenance, and program improvement ideas. F, review funding, expenditures, budget for parks and recreation. G, review programs and services being provided by Center Region Parks and Recreation and recommend additions, deletions, alterations, and improvements. H, critique plans, specifications, contracts, and projects that pertain to Parks and Recreation. I, develop lists and plans that might be used by persons or organizations who might wish to contribute items or services to improve parks and/or recreation programs. J, accept gifts and additions for park improvements approved by council. K, provide a representative or two to the Center Region Parks and Recreation Board. L, consult with the professional staff available to the Center Region Planning Office. And M, hold regularly scheduled meetings to which the public is invited. Now, I can talk about Parks and Recreation 2024 highlights. Relative to duties D, E, and F, new fitness equipment was installed at Spring Creek Park. New playground equipment was installed, and existing playground equipment was refurbished at Mountainside Park. And playground equipment was installed for the first time at Fieldstone Park. Relative to duty B, after receiving complaints about the condition of the ball fields, we invited guest speakers to provide expert guidance on baseball or softball field implementation and maintenance. We also invited guest speakers to provide guidance on stream habitat and buffer zone best practices. And we reviewed a suggested change to Chapter 139-6, ultimately recommending that the chapter not be amended. Relative to duty C, we reviewed and commented on the attainable housing, parkland, and open space requirements. At that time, we concurred with the Planning Commission's initial suggested change to make parkland and open space requirements consistent with the rest of the township's zoning. We reviewed and commented on the Mount Whitney Manor and the Crew 814 development sketch plans. We haven't seen the latest ones. And relative to duties I and J, we approved a service project application for Fogelman Overlook Park. That concludes my presentation. As I said, I've got a couple of printed copies if you'd like one as a reference document. And unless you have any questions or comments on the report, I'll introduce the committee chair for 2025.
Questions on the report? Nobody? Staff, anything else to add?
I do have a comment. Are we doing comments or just questions?
Comments and questions.
Okay. I want to thank you for the work that you did this year. I also want to especially thank Janet for the work on the Fieldstone Park this year, and Amy in the Public Works Department this year. That's something that's in my neighborhood, so I was able to see the impact directly. And I appreciate everything that's done, but did want to make that special mention tonight, so thank you.
Okay. Then the 2025 chairman.
Hang on, Dave. Go ahead.
Now, I just, and as part of the presentation, the materials, in the back on the last page is a picture of Mountainside Park. I just want to acknowledge the work that the committee has done relative to Mountainside Park and the entryway there. I think in combination with College Township Public Works crews, as well at the direction of Parks and Recreation, I think that the improvement that you see here is a significant improvement considering the condition of that particular area in the recent past. So, kudos.
Well, that's that's Amy. She did a great job with that. With the non-sided entryway.
Since we've called out Amy, anything else to add as the staff? All right. Go ahead with your introduction then.
Oh, I just have one comment.
Oh.
If I may. Yeah, well, Dave, no, thank you for your service as chair, first of all, right? You know, you and I met early last year, discussed some things. again, the Parks and Rec Committee, having been an alumni for just 1 year though, 1 or 2 years, I can't remember. But yeah, I really appreciate everything that's done. A comment I'd love to add to council to maybe plant a seed in for a goal for this year, maybe more of an objective, is I think we need to update our responsibilities from, 1974 memo, as Dave, keeps his historical record, which outlines things pretty decently well, probably needs updated. So, and revised and, maybe refreshed into more of a policy versus a memorandum.
The memo itself is included as Appendix A. I find it, with only one minor thing, to be an amazing document. Okay, it covers everything, from my perspective. Okay. Yeah, I will cover this. The memo says that 2 of the members of the committee should be under 18.
Right. There. So he just added some fodder. There you go.
I've been on the committee 36 years, okay, and in that time we've never had a member under the age of 18. And right now, all of the members are old enough to collect Social Security. I think we're going the wrong way. Okay, we really need to bring some more people in. Okay, and preferably, well, when I was recruited, I was 37. Okay, Tom Lechner was Adam's predecessor. Okay, and Denny Keats, who was the chair of the committee, were walking through Daleview Park. They had lost the representative for Daleview, and they saw me in my backyard working. And maybe that's all they knew about me. Okay, that I lived next to the park and I was working outside. But they told me about the Parks and Rec Committee. It had 6 meetings a year, that's all, and I should be on it. I never would have volunteered. Okay, I was 37. I had 3 kids under the age of 10. I was the Cub master for Pac 67 Lamont. I coached big soccer, and I really didn't need something else to do. But they made the point, okay, and being asked to help, okay, and given the opportunity to have some input on the park, that's a whole different story, okay? That's my backstory, okay? And I hope you can take away from that something that will help us fill the 2 open positions on the committee. Okay. Janet Golzer is our new chair.
Thanks, Dave.
Just want to say thank you all for your kind comments about Fieldstone Park. There are still some finishing touches out there. There's going to be a pathway in. So do come back in the spring, try out the swing. I guarantee you it's rated up to 300 pounds. We can all try it out. And I guess I'll just second what Dave mentioned about age. Having had a birthday this week, I will admit to being the 2nd oldest person on that committee. So anytime you can get somebody younger, probably be a good idea.
Hey, don't wander away quite yet.
Well,
We got Dave's backstory. There might be some interest in your backstory here.
about 1983, and I was in my mid-30s, I was asked to join the Planning Commission by Dolores Terracani. I served on the Planning Commission for a few years and then ran for elected office, served 2 4-year terms, went off for about 3-4 years, came back onto LTAC, Local Traffic Advisory Committee, from there to Planning Commission for, I think, 2 terms. And now I think I'm on my 2nd term of Planning Commission, and my current term expires at the end of this year.
Thank you, Janet. I felt that was worth noting for the record. We don't get you in this room that often anymore, so it's good. It's good that everybody knows that. Any questions or comments?
Thank you for your service, Janet.
Yeah.
I
Happy
think
birthday.
you heard what you heard what Dustin said about the memo. And how did you phrase that? What needs to be rewritten?
It needs to
What
be
needs to
more
be
of a
reviewed?
policy than.
Yeah, probably policy more than anything, yeah.
Okay. Is that an exercise that gets initiated at this level or at the committee level? If we were to choose to.
Well, my recommendation would be that staff could put together some elements and then get it to Parks and Rec to flesh out, and then end up bringing that back to council.
Sure, I would recommend we do that. I mean, you just heard that predates me, so it's probably time.
That's one way of putting it.
I have to apologize to the manager. I assumed that was his first year, but I guess
Wow.
not.
Oh,
All right, well, hey, thank you, Janet, and good luck this year. Not that you need it, but appreciate you stepping up, as always.
Thank you.
We'll see you then.
All right, that concludes SP1. We have no plans. That takes us to reports. There's a manager's report in the packet. Only a couple of things have been updated since last meeting. Anything else to add?
No, the only thing that I would draw your attention to would be a copy of the letter that council authorized with respect to the consent order and agreement between Penn State and DEP relative to PFAS investigation as part of the record, the letter that actually went out. So you have that. I have nothing else to add to the manager's update.
Okay, questions for the manager. To the right, Rich or Susan?
No.
Tracy or Dustin? All right, that concludes the manager's report. Takes us to COG regional, county, and liaison reports. According to the COG calendar, there were 3 COG committee meetings just recently this week. Land use, the Lucy, was that today?
Yeah, that was this morning. A very short meeting. We basically just really kind of ironed out what the values and vision statements are in the comp plan. So that'll be coming through. And we reviewed a few of the survey analysis as a press visit. Probably, I think, record short meeting for Lucy.
Figures.
Wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it.
All right, questions for Dustin?
No.
Thank you.
Rich, according to the calendar, facilities met this week. Is this true?
This is true, Mr. Chair. We had a relatively short meeting, but I thought very informative. We had a review of 2024 projects, which I had forwarded out to council. You may not have had a chance to look at that yet. We also reviewed what's on tap for 2025 and how we're going to try to report that out of the committee so that everybody has good transparency on the projects that are moving forward. And we also received an update on the facilities master plan. They're already scheduling site visits with the new project manager for this month.
I saw the email come through. It looked, at least initially, like that might be an item you'll be looking for some feedback from us on, or was that just a heads up?
That was for your review. We provided feedback on the report. I will just share the continuity of information in typical COG fashion. Usually they assemble it all and it all looks different and everything. So we said standardize your output, and in particular speak to your budgets, whether you were within budget. And then the other comment was if something's substantially complete, it would be helpful to offer when it's anticipated to be fully complete. So
That's what happens when you have your finance guy also on the facilities. According to, questions for Rich?
No.
Tracy, did HR meet this week?
Yeah, we met yesterday, but I have nothing to report. It was a relatively fast meeting.
Sounds like a good week for COG committees, huh? Did I miss any? You didn't have any?
No.
I didn't have any? Okay. Well, that'll take us to staff, PC, and other committee reports. Ed, or, I'm sorry, Matt?
Ed left.
Ed has left the building.
Ed's left the building.
Eugene wanted to process or something.
Tuesday night,
Do you want to
we
report? So I was gonna tell you what this time.
recommend for approval the Development Regional Impact Report for proposed increase to regional growth boundary and sewer service area, the 1601 Hoswell Road, which is the Clearwater Conservancy, with two contingencies. One is that the property is actually outside the sewer service area, so we're waiting to hear from UAJA. And the second one is the fire director put in a note. He said, "I will be surprised if you're able to meet the fire suppression requirements for an assembly use without extending municipal water service to the site." Right now, they're planning on having a well. Second thing we covered was some of the form-based code, and that's sort of what the tape on the floor is. Dawn, I'm not going to make you stand out in the hall like you did Tuesday
Thank you.
night. Yeah. And be careful if you cross the road back there too. Anybody have any questions on? Yeah. And lastly, it's Valentine's Day, and last year my wife called up and said that 3 of the ladies at the office were delivered bouquets of flowers. She said they're gorgeous. I said, well, that's probably why they were sent. That's not true.
I have a question.
Okay.
Just one question. You mentioned I wasn't sure if it was the fire captain or the fire marshal, the concerns about fire suppression on one of those two projects. Was that the Pam Health project in particular? or was it both of
The
them?
Clearwater Conservancy.
Oh, Clearwater. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just need to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, and like I say, that joke is not true.
You're going to have to make that up to your wife. Valentine's Day is next week.
I cleared it with her.
He's always, it's way ahead of us. All right, that takes us to other committee reports, and we do have at least one other committee that's not a COG committee, and I'm just going to turn it over to Dustin to identify what committee it is and provide his report.
Yeah, well, so this side of the table is kind of heavy with serving on that committee. So the 150th anniversary, the Sesquicentennial for College Township is this year. So we have a committee for planning events, and really, our last meeting basically just consisted of planning for the first event that we're hosting, which is the 15th. There will be a bonfire at Spring Creek Park, right? I think it starts around 5:30, right?
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock, yeah. But yeah, just want to add that, and we are ordering some cool stuff for small purchase or giveaways.
Can I just say something
Yeah.
to that as well? And if you haven't already, please like and follow the page on Facebook. It also updates you as well, so the bonfire is announced on there, the time and the save the date. So please just go and like and follow us on Facebook.
So we have a separate Facebook page
Yes.
just for this Susquehanna?
That's correct.
Yeah, that thing. All right. Any other committees? I miss any? No? Okay. Adam, anything else? You're on the
Nothing
committee.
from me, no, thank you.
All right. We already covered, I already covered the fact that our DIE monthly report will be done at our next meeting, our next February meeting. That concludes reports and takes us to consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes under CA1 includes one set of minutes, which are the minutes from our January 16th College Township Council, regular council meeting. CA2 correspondence includes 7 pieces of correspondence. CA2A is an email from Mr. Keith Snyder dated January 20th, 2025 regarding no solicitation policy. CA2B, email with article from Mr. Dan Materna dated January 24th, 2025 regarding township commissioning impact study for casino. CA2C, a letter from Mr. Neil Sullivan dated January 30th, 2025 requesting a rezoning for the Pam Health Project. CA2D, letter from Mr. Neil Sullivan dated January 24th, 2025, requesting a rezoning for the ARL expansion at Innovation Park. CA2E, an email with article from Mr. Dan Materna dated January 29th, 2025, regarding Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board fines. CA2F, email with article from Mr. Dan Materna dated January 30th, 2025, regarding the casino. And CA2G, email with article from Mr. Dan Materna dated January 31st, 2025 regarding Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board fines. That's the entirety of the CA2, and we have 2 items remaining in CA3. As a note, originally the proclamation was included in CA3. We've already pulled that and acted on it. The remaining two items under CA3 are CA3B, the appointment of Ms. Vanessa Sherman to the College Township Industrial Development Authority with a term ending December 31st, 2029, and CA3C, cooperation agreement between College Township and Clearwater Conservancy pursuant to previously approved land lease for grant funding. Would any members like to have any of these items pulled for discussion before considering a motion to accept the consent agenda? Susan and then Dustin?
CA2A?
CA2A? Same one? All right. Any others? All right. Therefore, the chair will accept a motion to accept the consent and accept and approve the consent agenda item as presented minus CA2A and of course CA3A, which we've already acted on.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
So seconded.
Any discussion needed here? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, consent agenda accepted and approved minus CA2A. Email from Mr. Keith Snyder dated January 20th, 2025 regarding no solicitation policy. Susan, you want the answer to the obvious question?
Yes, I do.
Do we have an ordinance?
Just for the record. Yeah.
For the record.
Mark, I think you should explain, or answer that question, but explain what we do have.
Yes,
Please.
We do not have a no solicitation ordinance. We do have requirements for solicitation permit that has certain parameters set as far as days of the week you can do it, times of the day you can do it, you know, exempt holidays, things of that sort from days they are allowed to solicit. I actually spoke at length on the phone with this letter writer, and he brought up a valid point, and he said, you know what, I've been here long enough, I'm tired of the same company over and over, and this particular event, there were a couple days with ill family members where they didn't answer the phone or answer the door, and, you know, next day, someone else with the same writing on the jacket but a different person, and he had reached his breaking point. There were some suggestions during our conversation, and I think if council wants us to pursue this, possibly one of the easiest things is through our website, we could do an annual no solicitation list. And when you come in to apply for a permit, and we issue your permit, and by the way, here's a list of the homes you are not allowed to contact. It may be something as simple as that, but our conversation, I recommended that council would sooner hear directly from the citizen aggrieved than from staff, and I assumed that it would go this route and be pulled for discussion.
So then the email to staff came after your conversation?
Yes, that was my recommendation, that he address this with council so they can hear from him personally that he was affected, and that was just one possible solution I came up with, and it's possible there could be other things that could be done to help alleviate this.
Dustin or Susan?
So a solicitor needs to apply for a permit in the
Yes.
township. And this solicitor did have a permit.
Yes.
And is there a mechanism for him to file a formal complaint so that if that solicitor continues to apply but has a history of aggressive abuses, you know, how does that work?
This particular solicitor gets permits every year.
Okay.
They've probably been to every one of your houses
Mhm.
every year for years. I get them in Benner Township.
Is Susan on to something here? You suggested one alternative, one approach. Is that a viable approach from the staff standpoint?
Yeah,
Grounds for not issuing a permit based on?
I think that would be treading on dangerous ground. How can we, you know, for us to pick and choose, you know what? People don't like you knocking on their door, so you don't get a permit.
Okay.
I think it may be, my personal feeling, I think you'd be running into a lot of potential
right.
legal trouble if we decide to pick and choose.
Yeah, I don't think we should Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't think we should pick and choose, I really don't. But if somebody, I think your suggestion to have a no solicitation list, and if there are complaints and making people aware, if there's a common pattern that one particular solicitor has been problematic, that's something we would want to be able to keep track of and consider.
We could put something in
Yeah.
our ordinance that, solicitation license, you must adhere to the no contact list provided, and be it one strike, two strike, three strikes, whatever, at some point we can say, continue violations, will revoke your permit and possibly, make you ineligible for a permit for the following 12 months or something. There's all kinds of ways that could be addressed beyond that.
Tracy, did you have a question? Then we'll go down.
I think, I did have a question. Beside this one resident, was there any additional complaints?
No.
Have there ever been concerning this solicitor?
We periodically get solicitor complaints, sometimes from citizens. Occasionally, I'll get a call from the police department. Hey, do you have a permit for, ABC roofing?
Mm-hmm.
No, we don't, okay? And the police will cite them for soliciting without a permit.
Gotcha.
Some citizens call directly to the police when, we don't get a lot of complaints. I will say also in defense of this particular company that we tend to see numerous solicitation permits, I have had, over the last couple of years, I've had 2 occasions where I had citizens talk about over-aggressive sales tactics, and calls to the person that the permit was issued to did result in people being pulled from the township and not permitted by that company to represent them here. So that company has been responsive to me on the 2 complaints I've had about high-pressure type sales tactics.
Adam?
Yeah, I was just going to say, my recommendation, if council wanted to address this issue, rather than introduce subjectiveness to aggressive tactics, I would certainly advise council to lean more toward the establishment of a no contact list. I think that in many ways would be more appropriate to address the type of situation that we've encountered here. Again, I think that Mark does a very good job of managing the existing permit holders. You may or may not recall, I happened to, very early on in my tenure here, this process was instituted because of a rampant nature of unknown, unidentifiable individuals that were soliciting in the township. And so the permit process was put in place, and it's worked reasonably well to address those things. Am I correct, Mark? Is not one of the elements of the permit some type of a background check, at least a cursory?
Yes, the solicitation permit does require photo ID of any persons involved with that group that will be conducting the activities. And I will sit down and go through Megan's Law and run those names from hometowns and things of that sort to weed some of those out.
So the process has been very effective, but I think if we wanted to enhance it, this would be something that I would encourage council to at least consider the no contact list.
I think that makes sense. I think the only concern I have is people are more and more concerned about people who come to the door. There are more Ring doorbells. People are tracking the kinds of people who come to their door. And behavior has gotten more aggressive in the last 5 or 10 years. And so just recognizing that Mr. Snyder experienced, to your point, that could be very subjective as well. So
I'm hearing no objection to that. We'll do a straw poll here, but should we decide to go down that road, what would that involve? Council action?
Yeah, and I'm sure with all the spare time, staff could sit down and throw together, some ideas for an ordinance and take it before planning commission for minor tweaks to the ordinance to kind of address that particular issue.
Yeah, I would anticipate this would be a subsection of the existing ordinance. And I think that in fact, I believe that Patton Township has recently done something of this nature. So I think that we could rely on some of the work that's been done in Patton to inform what we do here as well.
We're not the first ones with this one.
Not this one.
That's nice.
All right, any objection to what we've heard and what staff is recommending? Looking to the left. Rich? Nothing?
Support.
All right. Thanks, by the way, for listening to him and following up and having a reasonable and workable solution prepared for us tonight. All right, that then concludes reports.
Mr. Chair, I'll
sorry,
move to
that
approve
concludes,
CA2A.
Yep.
Second.
All right, all in favor of adopting CA2A as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Remaining consent agenda item accepted and adopted. Closing consent agenda moves us to old business, under which we have two items. The first one is OB1, Crew 814 Planned Residential Development. Item A, under that is a conditional use permit for multifamily residential uses in the planned research and business development business park district. And B, Crew 814 Planned Residential Development Tentative Plan. There's going to be a lot of overlap here, as there was in the, so we're going to kind of, these are discussion items. I'm going to look at them both simultaneously. And there was no promise that we were actually going to have much discussion, but it is on the agenda for discussion. So with that, having sat through the public hearing, does staff have anything to lead us off with potential discussion on this?
I was just, after the public hearings, I was making a list of next steps. I'm going to provide the Planning Commission with this planning series about special exceptions, conditional uses, and variances. There's a lot of good information in here regarding conditional uses and how we move forward. Then we can review all the material that was done tonight, pull together a draft for council just of what we heard, and we're going to do the same thing with the PRD, the tentative plan.
Okay, Adam?
Yeah, just to be clear, that is going to be forwarded to, is it the planning commission or is it going to go to council? The planning, the booklet.
Oh, this?
The booklet. Is
Oh.
it going to go to council or you, I think you said planning commission.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to be, what I wanted to clarify is that will be distributed to council for your review.
Right.
At this point in time, this entirely remains in the purview of council to decide. There's not an opportunity at this point for it to go back to planning commission. I just wanted to.
No, you're correct. That was late. It was a slip up. Sorry about that. So council will get this planning series. And I highlighted a few sections, but I'll let that up to you to do. And Louis liked this as well. So those are my next steps.
Okay. Adam, anything else?
I have nothing else this time.
All right, let's start with Rich. Anything pop into your head since the public hearing?
That was quite a while ago, but no.
Susan?
Nope.
I have one thing.
That's okay.
Yeah, with all of the discussion on the grading of the site, I think unless it's already in there, I don't have a packet with me, but it would be helpful to get some sort of better rendering of, picturing what all the grades look like. I don't know if we can flip it on, the horizontal axis and kind of look out, maybe a picture or something like that. That's just my only request for the packet. Yeah.
A model?
Yeah, I mean a model.
A model.
Yeah, a little model. Yeah, let's put a little model in the middle here. They already got tape up. Yeah, I'm kidding about that, by the way. But yeah.
Matt broke the size.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we could do, and I know I did, sorry.
It's getting late.
I know, I understand. I
No,
understand.
I think what we could do, and I have prepared this in the past, we did like a grid breakdown showing it, and it's a color-coded breakdown. It's not so much a 3D rendering, but it'll show like areas where we have like cuts of like 5 feet or 5 to 10 feet, or cuts like up to 15 feet, something like that. So is that something that would satisfy your question or your?
Yeah, I just want to get a sense of, well, just one question, right? We talk about all the open space. Well, what's the grade like on the open space? Is it actually usable open space, or is it a cliff, right?
Right.
So you're asking for like a cross-section?
Yeah, cross-section. That's what I'm looking at, right? If we have, everything's top down, right? As if we're looking at a terrain model, but it's all flat, right? If you're talking like a cross-section, maybe you can see that cross-section of, like a horizontal axis.
Yeah, I think we could pull a cross-section pretty quickly. With the 3D rendering, that's a whole other, can of worms there. That's a big ask. But I think we could easily pull a section line through, maybe two access points, just to give you some perspective on the how the final grading will be for the site.
That's it.
Can I ask Lindsay a question?
Sure.
Didn't DBZ do 3D renderings of some of the drawings that they gave us? I mean, they've done the whole Dale Summit. Do they have a 3D rendering of that part of the Dale Summit?
I can check. I know we had a lot of
Might
back
be
and
done.
Yeah, I can look in the final presentation that they did at the charrette. But I know staff has been back and forth with them about elevations and the walls and the buildings and, what the views, things like that will be. So we can probably, along with what they'll provide, we can clarify some of our discussions we've had.
No, maybe we should just take a walk.
We've been out there to the site. We can do that too.
Do that too.
Tracy, anything else?
No, nothing else.
No? The one thing I would ask, question I have is, again, appreciate the offer to contribute to the development of the path towards Spring Creek Canyon. And if it's done in the form of escrow or however we do it, could we get that up front as part of phase one? Just on the odd chance that things happen on Shiloh Road and we're in a position to put that in before phase two of that development? Is that a reasonable request to
I
make?
think that ends up being a condition
Okay.
that.
Well, that's why I'm floating it out there now.
Sure.
We're happy to. That's good. That'd be good.
I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know with market forces. We're optimistic on Shiloh, as I'm sure you are on both phases.
If we were to take a walk out there, do we need to be with someone from the engineering company, or can we just walk around the site?
Yeah.
I don't want to get arrested for trespassing. That would be really bad form. Now I can say I'm not trespassing. I got permission.
When are you going?
Yeah, okay. Don't tell Mark.
You have an option to purchase the property, so it's still the underlying property owner, or?
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. He has it under agreement right now.
Right.
All right. Anything else to add since you have the floor, and then we'll go to Janet.
I don't believe so. I think answered a lot of questions. I mean, I think it's a great project that we're doing. I think it'll be a really nice project for the community. So.
All right. This is not an action item, but as always, Janet, I would welcome your thoughts on this. But you're going to have to step up to the front again.
Yeah, no problem. You have in your agenda packet a memo from the Parks Committee that summarizes when we saw this plan back in November and in January. Both times we looked at the plan that was dated the end of October of 2024, And so the comments you see on our memo reflect from that plan. I do understand there's been some changes as recently as this evening with the offer of fee in lieu of, but you can read for yourself our comment at the bottom of that memo. And it seems to me, this is strictly personally from me, that council is doing some of the suggestions and recommendations that we have in that memo, actually looking at whether the required and offered open and active spaces for this development are met, and then most importantly, that from the future, from this point on, as we work with this ordinance more, that we look at, I think Dustin mentioned this, the density compared to the open space requirements, because we're hearing 1,500 residents. My personal estimation is slightly higher than that, and although there's isolated spots, not necessarily contiguous unless you count the walkways and pathways, the question remains, is that enough open space, whether it's active or just open space, for that many residents? And I'll be glad to answer any other questions or see what the committee has as we might look at it again with the fee in lieu of.
Questions for Janet while she's got the floor?
Just want to add, I did see the comments, Dave's report, and so the questions I asked during the conditional use hearing were based on the information that came from those questions, so thank you for that.
No problem. Oh, I will say too, with the pathway at, what did I hear, 1,200 to 1,500 feet, look at your annual report that Dave gave with the Harris Acres pathway. Look at the budgeted amount for that, which is a pathway that's less than or right around 100 feet. Look at what you've budgeted for that compared to the 1,200 to 1,500 feet.
That number caught my attention. But thank you, Janet. And I think you gathered from our comments, this is a council that has always been very diligent in supporting, open space and parks through traditional land development plans. So that was going to come up anyways. It's been our focus as long as we've been together. So I think we're in a position to support Park and Rec's recommendation to the extent that we can reasonably through this process.
Great.
Thanks again.
No problem.
All right. If there is nothing else, again, this is a discussion item. There is no action needed unless somebody feels so compelled.
Just a reminder, the next time the council will see anything relative to either the conditional use or through the tentative plan will be at the meeting on March 6th.
Correct.
March 6th. Okay. That will close our first old business item, and we will take a short 3 to 5 minute recess to allow our audience to leave unawkwardly, and we'll reconvene back here at 9:30.
They're like so ready.
All right, at this point, the chair will reconvene this College Township Council meeting. And it takes us to our second old business item of the night, OB2, Long Range Transportation Plan responses. This is a discussion item with the potential for action after we've had a discussion. But before we consider anything, I think, is it Don, are you going to walk us a bit?
Yes.
Review the memo that's in our packet?
Okay, yes. You recall back in December, Ann Mesner was here to talk about the long-range transportation plan. And at that time, we were given a questionnaire with 5 questions on it on some of the issues that they would like to have input from all the municipalities. And Mike Bloom worked up a really good response. And do you want me to go through item by item?
Well, yeah.
Real
To that,
quick?
I think if you can just briefly.
Okay. The first question was, what are the major needs and issues pertaining to these highways?
We'll stop after each section and
Yep.
see if there's any questions, any additions.
Pertaining to these highways and bridges. And Mike identified several. The SR 322 S-curve, we're all familiar with that, off the Mount Nittany Expressway. Over the years, there's been numerous tractor-trailer rollovers. And there was another issue with a car crossing over the median and hitting a vehicle going the other direction. They've now put up some safety guide rail. They have the lighted chevrons, which I think were taken out once already. And so there's still wrecks there. And I'm not sure I would say that it's decreased even. It seems like there's...
It's pretty consistent.
But the solution there is to a realignment of the S-curve. And I remember Gary Williams telling me that when they were trying to get right-of-way for the expressway, there was a property owner in that area they could not get land from. It was a battle, and so they had to put in that slightly sharper curve through there in order to get the right-of-way. But the solution there would be to go back in and realign that road. So that's one issue. SR 26 interchange over 322. We have 3 traffic signals in this area and numerous wrecks, and there's actually a little bit of unfinished business with that one. Back in May of last year, staff was asked to get some traffic crash data for that area. And Mark was able to get 3 years and 4 months of crash data for the signal out here in front of our building and on the 2 ramps. And actually in that 3 years and 4 months, there were 49 wrecks that were reported. Now I was asked to go through and say, how many of these wrecks are a result of traffic backing up? Particularly traffic wanting to turn left to get on westbound Nittany Valley or Nittany Expressway. And of that 49 wrecks, I only identified 5 that were really obviously a result of backing up. Most of them were I switched lanes and didn't look around and was hit by somebody in the other lane. I ran a stop light. Those are the common wrecks there. And anyone from staff can tell you that the light out in front of our building, when it turns green and you're leaving here, you wait. You do not pull out because it's green, because that is so many T-bones in that area. In fact, one of our vehicles got T-boned there, and they actually did stop to look.
Well, more than one, but recently one of our vehicles had been hit there.
So they're asking for what can we do to correct some of the issues there. Park Avenue. Park Avenue is just not designed for the traffic it gets. University.
That's a veteran project on the lawn.
Yeah, it's been talked about for years. University Drive, similar situation, and there's just no pedestrian friendly facilities along there. Shiloh Pike, Benner Pike, Shiloh Road.
Don, University Drive, you're including too, over top of state, SR 26 or
Yes.
top of College
Yep,
Ave?
mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
University Drive, Benner Pike, Shiloh Road. It's a similar situation. There's not real good bicycle facilities there. Airport Connector Road. This is the talk of connecting the Innovation Boulevard
Area,
over to the airport, which
Another veteran project from the Long Range
yeah,
Transportation.
which is with some of the other issues now and at the airport, this might be even a tougher project. But okay, so those were the key corridors that
Okay,
Mike
let's stop
addressed.
there
Yep.
then. Just for context here for tonight, for those who don't know, the MPO is required to update the long-range transportation plan every 5 years. And it's kind of like your wish list, okay? But if you want something to make it onto the tip, which is your 4-year plan that you actually have money for, that's when the MPO sits down and picks things off the long-range transportation plan and says, this is what we're going to spend the money that we have on, then it really needs to be on the long-range transportation plan to start with. So for tonight, what Mike and Don and staff have put together is feedback for the MPO on what things in College Township need to be on the long-range transportation plan. And our role tonight is to endorse these or take things off here or add things on. So at this point, I would say, is there anything missing from that category, or does anyone disagree with any of the items on this category that Don is listed? Looking to Rich, Susan?
I guess a question, with us having a fire substation and also the ambulance service in College Township, is there any piece for preemption or that type of stuff in this, or is that another discussion?
Well, as I looked through this, because I had the same thought, traffic signal priority and or preemption, there is emerging technology.
Yeah, I wondered if it would be there or whether it would be deemed a need or an issue in.
When we get to that one, I think we should bring that up and see if there's a.
I wasn't sure which one it would best fall under, because it's not really an emerging technology. It just needs to be implemented.
But it could be under ITS.
Are you saying because they're both along College Avenue, like that corridor?
Well, throughout the township, it's actually a regional thing, but we're only being asked to speak on College Township at this point, but it starts at home. So, and again, like I said, we have a substation here, we have the ambulance service here.
And we may have in a collection of, just kind of a scattering of signals that are equipped for that with the hardware. What we need is a coordinated approach to the entire corridor.
Yeah, I think on College Avenue, all the lights have the preemption.
Yeah, because there's an ordinance, any new signal has to have it. And so I think there are very few that have not been retrofitted.
Well, at the time I was involved, it was the hardware in the boxes that was preventing.
Yeah, I think
that's all been worked on.
I think that's been updated. But the funny thing is, LifeLink does not have preemption.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah. For their
They don't
equipment.
have
For their equipment. I don't know whether, the ambulance services do not have that.
Right.
I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense at all to me, but, that's a
Okay,
side issue.
are we missing anything on here? So we don't have to have the answers to these, we just have to identify them as needed.
Don, is there, the only question in my mind, because we've talked about this, and I don't think that we're going to be successful, but we had talked about the Elmwood Street Bridge and pedestrian.
It's already been awarded.
No, I know I know, we did our best to get some pedestrian enhancements
Right.
introduced to that, and I know that we were unsuccessful, but my point is that something that should be on, should we add that to this list?
If we go to the next section.
It is
Howard,
under,
Oh, I'm sorry.
it is under alternative transportation mode.
I stand corrected.
Actually,
Yeah.
you're sitting.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah, I see.
I had the same question though, and that, yeah.
That's it
Yep.
too.
All right, that's a segue into the next.
Okay, second question. What are the gaps and capacity issues pertaining to alternative transportation
There it
modes?
is.
Bike, ped, transit, etc. Mike came up with 5 responses on this one. Implement the pedestrian facilities master plan. Every effort should be made to develop pedestrian bicycle amenities within the primary and secondary investment corridors as identified in the pedestrian facilities master plan, which we just did. College Township is requesting that PennDOT and the CCMPO implement complete street designs into their future projects in the region where practical. Second item, pedestrian bicycle amenities on bridges. There you go, Adam.
Yep.
In the township and region, barriers to pedestrian bicycle travel are often associated with bridges such as the SR 26 Shiloh Road, interchange I-99, University Drive, Branchwood, Elmwood Avenue. As these bridges move towards rehabilitation or replacement, please consider widening to accommodate other modes. Transit, ensure that key community routes are easily accessible and require no minimal transfers to reach important destinations such as the Mountain Ending Medical Center, employment and shopping centers. Transit, maintain a fixed route through Lemont. Transit, continue to improve Catago service within College Township. So as Adam was mentioning, we had been pushing PennDOT to include, even if it was just a slight fence along Elmwood Street Bridge, because when you're on a bike or even walking over that bridge, you don't feel real safe. You walk towards the road, so you're not leaning out over the. And at one point, we were hoping that we could use our Pike. They want to use Pike Street as a detour, and they modified their design so they didn't have to do that. So that project has been bid, and it's anticipated that the construction will begin in, I believe, in April. Or no, I'm sorry, they're waiting until after school's out.
And most of that construction, though, is going to be underneath.
Yes, and then that was their excuse, is that the deck itself, they're not doing any other than the expansion dams between segments of the deck. No work was occurring on the deck, so there was no reason for them to be doing anything with that. And once you put a fence up, you get wind load issues, and then you have to analyze the parapets that are there, and they might not be adequate based on that.
So, to be clear with what you were saying, we're talking about the Elmwood Street Bridge, and it has approached its 50 or 40-year rehab calendar, and we were asked to comment. And
Well, actually, these are repairs. Is that correct, Don?
Yes, they came to us saying, as part of that PennDOT Connects program where they go to the municipalities.
Okay.
There was 3 or 4 bridges on a group, and that was one of them. And so we became aware of that project, and we said, really, we'd appreciate it if you could do that.
So technically, it's not the existing life of the bridge as much as it is these repairs.
Maintenance, okay.
Yeah,
Asset
maintenance.
Yeah, a couple of the repairs were where a vehicle went underneath the bridge, and there was an excavator on the vehicle with the boom up in the air, and it hit the bridge.
Wow.
Okay, so it wasn't like Wattle Road where they had to raise the bridge.
No. This is just patching some areas on the piers and the abutments that are spalling, and some of the beams where an excavator damaged the bridge. Actually, we had one of our vehicles on the bridge at the time going over the bridge, and they said, "Oh yeah, you felt that when that thing hit." And so it hit all 5 beams going across, and the vehicle just kept going. But luckily, there were police handy to the site and pulled them over after they, or actually stopped them after they pulled over to where they were going. So I'm sure that's costing a lot of money.
Okay, having heard that, anything missing from that list? Anything we want to emphasize further, more intently?
I have a question.
Question?
Would this be the section we might put something in about connectivity with railroads, or is that CEDACOG?
Are we talking about like intermodal connections?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably would fit better in there because we're talking transit.
So is that something that falls under, say, for example, the CEDACOG, what is it, the
Well, we're talking-
Joint Railroad Authority? I mean,
Are we talking about a facility or are we talking about routing? Are we talking
I don't
about
know.
building an intermodal station or?
more the concept of if there's expansion to make, I don't know, some sort of, I don't know if there's transportation to the existing passenger railways, and just thinking way ahead as we get more population up in the Dale Summit area, people might want to be able to come and go by Lewistown or Tyrone. Is that something, you know, I don't even know enough to maybe be able to phrase it sensibly to you, but if you get my gist of where I'm going with that, and is that something we want to just put a placeholder in here? That seems like the place.
I'm not sure what we would do there. I mean, right now, Bellefonte is the only site in Center County
Yeah.
that you can board
Right.
a pedestrian train, and they in the fall, they do a couple trips down to Tyrone. They did a trip this year into Lemont.
Oh,
I
yeah,
believe.
and I'm not thinking of the railroad per se, I'm talking about something that would, maybe a shuttle or some sort of intermodal possibility?
So get off the, yeah.
Yeah, I've been on those trains, and the idea of building a railway that would get people to the Dale Summit area right now seems a little bit ambitious.
Yeah.
But is, in the future, is that something, and I mean, I think that's the point of this, is, right, is to think somewhat ambitiously.
Oh, this is,
in
this is
future.
long range.
This is,
isn't,
exactly, so it's ambitious, but, you know.
Passenger rail.
I think we have a possibility here. The MPO is in the work plan for next year, supporting a planning funds to figure that out.
Right.
To figure out how to best make connections between the center region and either Lewistown, Tyrone, or Altoona to take advantage of the second daily Amtrak commuter train that's going to start running in 2026 between Pittsburgh and Harrisburg. So simply identifying our support for that project may be the answer. And I can get you maybe something from the MPO's work plan to just emphasize that.
Well, we have a technical committee meeting next Wednesday. I can just bring it up as like
We want to include our support for the MPO's countywide effort to find some way to connect with
Rail service.
with Amtrak, particularly in this, timed with the planned expansion of east-west rail service across Pennsylvania.
I can bring that up Wednesday.
Okay. That'll work?
That's exactly it.
But you did touch on something that's interesting, whether, at some level, rail connection to the Dale Summit area.
Right.
We're thinking 30 years down the road here.
We're supposed to, right?
Right.
You know, whether it's freight, whether it's passenger. All right, anything else for that section?
Just, if we could reference, implement College Township's pedestrian facility. It's hyperlinked, I get it, but if the hyperlink doesn't work or whatever. just
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, along with Rich's comment, I had just wrote in the margin here, Dale Summit. You know, we're all onto the path to campus now from here on in, and I know there are some barriers grade and such. But with all the work we're doing at Dale Summit, I think it's incumbent upon us to find a pedestrian connection between Dale Summit and what we're doing right here. I know we've got the backup plan through Hauserville, but, you know, it's a 30-year plan. You know, let's figure out how we can get a PED connection along College Avenue between Dale Summit and the end of the path to campus right here. It's probably covered in our pedestrian master plan, but is it worth calling that out special from the pedestrian master plan, given our efforts underway right now with Dale Summit?
So I believe the pedestrian master plan does not address a direct bike ped connection crossing the, crossing 322.
That was my understanding too.
Yeah, that was the whole idea behind the Puddintown, the Hauserville, it's a
Secondary.
It's a secondary connection. In order to accomplish that, acknowledging, A, the size of the bridges that we do have here to cross, but also, if you will, the gullet between the end of the bridge here and the intersection of Hauserville and College Avenue.
Okay, so we use that as the backup plan. We still have from Pike Street to Dale Summit.
It's on the official map too. Everything that was in the PED plan, we
So
updated to the.
technically, it's covered under our official map and that, but I'm just tossing out that given the efforts we're putting with Dale Summit, it seems to maybe that project might rise a little bit higher than the other elements of the PED plan.
Well, you had 1,500 residents, the opportunities for people to use it go way up.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is something that's been tossed around, you know, speaking about that particular one, right? And this is why people talk about the canyon all the time, right? Because then where does that connect to, right? That whole connection can take you right into Bellefonte, right? So I don't know, you know, if that belongs in our responses, but that should probably be in there. You know, some kind of connection between that whole, I mean, you now have feasibly connected Dale Summit to Bellefonte by, you know, just an alternate way. So.
Well, that could be a new bullet item.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Because
let
it's not in our
Lindsay
plan.
write that.
I'd be happy to.
I mean, the big one there will be that bridge probably won't need upgraded for a long time. But 30 years, probably, definitely.
Goes quick, huh, Adam?
Hey, it took almost 40 years for the pedestrian network from North Atherton to make it all the way into campus. And they
Right.
didn't wait, each piece didn't wait because the one piece was not going to be developed. So if we can get everything done around that in my lifetime, I'll be happy.
I walked that once. That's a pretty long walk. Yeah.
Somebody else can fight the bridge battle, but we'll get the two ends put together on either side of it. Anything else on that one?
Just on the note for rail, right? You know, I know we've talked about it in discussions in our PED plan, right? You look at Lamont, and there is an existing rail bed there. You know, I don't know, you know, some of it still has track on it that goes to the post office, between the post office and Center Concrete, right? If you're looking for an alternate way to get over to Dale Summit, it's right through there. You know, I mean, obviously then you gotta deal with Elmwood, but, you know, that's another alternate way to get over to that side of Dale Summit.
All you need is an 8-foot
Yeah.
asphalt pathway within the existing easement there, CEDACOG.
Well, it's not CEDACOG's easement. It's privately owned.
The easement for the rail.
They abandoned
it.
Yeah, they abandoned that, so it's privately owned. Now, we happen to know who the owner is.
The part where there's tracks is privately owned?
No, not where there's tracks, but I thought you were talking about.
Well, either or, right? You can
Okay.
go, the bed too still, yeah, that, the bed is privately owned, yeah, either or, right? But I mean, if you're looking at alternate, I guess that fits here, alternative transportation modes, right? And even if I mean, I understand it's still used for freight past, I mean, basically from Center Concrete past, right, going out. But you still get into the back of that shopping center, right, where it's not used for freight anymore. And, I know Steve Sumor loves to say, hey, that one time a year we get to ride that thing, during the little Monster Strawberry Festival. Is that really worth it? Or would we rather have a, pedestrian path over there?
I know people who walk to the mall, to Planet Fitness
Yeah.
along there.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, let's toss something in there for us to chew on the next meeting.
Good point, Justin.
I will give this to Mike to draft up.
It was all Susan's fault. She started talking about railways.
30 years.
30 years.
All right, can we move
Here on the roads.
to emerging technologies?
What new or emerging technologies would you like to see deployed to improve mobility or system operations? And Mike's identified 3. EV infrastructure, expanding and the EV charging infrastructure in the area, ITS architecture, continue to build out and expand the intelligent transportation systems infrastructure across the region to improve safety and traffic flow, connected vehicle infrastructure, incorporate infrastructure needed for a CV or autonomous vehicle future.
Anything missing there? Any questions on what's in there?
Yeah, hydrogen fuel stations. No, it's kind of a joke.
Toyota thinks
30 years, I don't know.
One thing at a time,
Fusion reactors, yeah.
Well, within 30 years. So I know that EV vehicles have plateaued a bit, but at the same time, plug-ins have picked up. So I think the incentivizing EV charging instruction is still a valid request. For what it's worth. Anything else there? How about county or regional issues?
What major transportation needs and issues exist throughout the region and county levels? Completion of the State College Area Connector. We're going to get an update on that next Wednesday at the Technical Committee. Airport Connector Road. We sort of already talked about that. Public transportation, county and Center County Office of Transportation provide vital service to the county and region. The current level of investment needs to be maintained. Where possible, service should be enhanced and expanded as necessary. Expand the active transportation network. Continue to fill gaps in the existing network and evaluate current and future opportunities to expand the network where it is needed.
Questions, comments? No?
That one would be, I think, the previous discussion of preemption, that's probably where that one,
For the county or regional?
yeah.
Cross.
If it were to be put in there.
Did you get that, Dawn?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 quick comments. The last bullet item, expand active transportation network. The MPO now has an adopted active transportation plan. I don't know if that's what Mike meant.
I don't know for sure myself.
It may be simpler to just note support for the needs, priorities identified in the adopted active transportation plan. And my other comment is in the 3rd bullet. I don't know if it's worth noting specifically service to Bellefonte, Spring, and Benner Township. And I bring that up from College Township standpoint because many of the businesses in College Township draw their employment base from areas that have recently seen very significant decreases in public transportation options. And while that's not our municipality, it impacts our municipality. It impacts the entire center region. But right along with Dale Summit, it's going to be drawing employment base from well outside College Township. So I don't know if there's a way to emphasize those areas in here instead of the more generic.
Well, I think the easy way to do it is take that last sentence, where possible, service should be enhanced and expanded as necessary, comma, especially to better Spring Township and Bellefonte.
Unless anyone's opposed to that. Okay, Dawn, we're down to land use.
Okay, what are the anticipated changes in land use development? What are the potential issues, impacts on the transportation system? Dale Summit. Huh. I won't even bother reading that. We've been talking about Dale Summit. Gray Star, that's one we haven't brought up. 1,500 unit student housing complex at Graduate Circle. That's where our path to campus is going to end. Innovation Park. We now have Penn State looking at shifting a lot of their ARL facilities over to there. Lindsay, you want to throw anything in on about that one? We've been talking with
both expansions, two expansions to the potential expansions to the regional growth boundary. I think we'll add some, I don't know. Yeah, that's it.
Anything else? Thoughts?
I just had one question. How much more housing development do we anticipate on the backside of Hauserville that is kind of encroaching upon Dale Summit, but not technically Dale Summit?
So, good question. There are no other phases left in Winfield, right?
No, last phase has been approved.
Okay, so that means that the only other potential there is the balance of the Claire Farm.
Yep.
And I have no indication, we've seen no movement there. But we also were completely unaware that there was any movement at all relative to Winfield Heights. So who knows? But that would be where that would occur in that particular location, unless there's something else that I'm not.
No, I mean, looks like it's zoned ag and outside of the growth boundary, so I think more expansion of residential would have to come with a growth boundary expansion.
Right.
And I would point out that the first and third bullets, elements of that, we've already talked about and are included in some of our other bullets, so I don't know that it's necessary to emphasize that. You know, for example, in the first bullet, we just talked about getting our PED connection from Dale Summit down to Pike Street. You know, that is generally included in what you're referring to in the first bullet. Same with Innovation Park and the airport connector. The airport connector is listed in two other places here, but it's really key, I think, to the development of Innovation Park. It's a short distance.
Yeah.
It really is. If you look at, you look at the satellite imagery between the proposed PAM facility and airport, the road.
Compared to going down Rock Road and that roundabout way, yeah.
I mean, there's challenges. There's topographical, geographical, I don't know how you would characterize
Topographical
challenges. Otherwise, it would already be built, probably.
Yeah.
Anything else? Big picture, land use?
I don't know if it's not in the township, but potentially it could output into the township. The second phase of the retreat is going to go on Wapelani, and then it comes out right at our western boundary there by, Campbell Road? Is it Campbell Road or whatever, there by the YMCA and everything. So you're going to get some impact out of that one, onto that edge, out of that edge of the township. But I don't know if it rises to the merit of this, and that in particular, it's not in the township if they're speaking for us to speak on the township.
But that's elsewhere in the county, in the region in the county though, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't consider it a county or regional issue. It's just a land use. I mean, it is pretty substantial development that they're suggesting for that parcel.
Which parcel is this again? I apologize.
The Westerly Parkway, the big chunk of
Oh,
Westerly Parkway
yeah.
and at the back that
Yep,
adjoins
yep.
Wapelini.
Yeah.
Is that what?
It's a retreat, the second phase of the retreat.
That's what I
Retreat
couldn't
two.
think of.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought I said that, but okay. Yep, it's been a while. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if it rises to the, if we're speaking as the township, but it will impact that edge of the township.
And if they don't go out Campbell, they go out Atherton and turn right, they're gonna be in College Township by the time
Yeah.
they hit Hills Plaza, so.
Right, right.
Don, did we give enough?
I just had one question. The quarry, is that gonna be around 30 years? And, you know,
Well,
what
they just got a permit to go down another 50 feet.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, it's gonna run around, but I think it'll be here for 30.
Not in this one, next one?
Next one. When, after your 30th year on council, you can incorporate that.
So I'll come back.
Second tour.
Boy, that's 30 years, that's a lot of those papers you get at the holiday event, the 4-year term.
You'll be overrun with Post-its.
Well, I really appreciate staff getting their arms around this and presenting this to us with this level of detail. I found it very helpful to work from this.
No, Mike did a really good job on that. Got some input from Lindsay on it.
Yeah, Mike sent me a text earlier, so he's listening. He said he meant to say the active, when we were talking about active transportation plan, he said, yeah, that's what I meant, so
Oh, okay.
he's listening.
So I can tell you from experience, 32 or 33 municipalities staff reaches out to this year with the help of a consultant, and they do not get this level of detail from many of those municipalities. Now, just for information, kudos to staff. Well thought out detail.
Kudos to Mike to actually sit and listen to this while he's at a conference.
I think Adam should counsel him after.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're gonna have a session, Mike.
Sorry, Mike.
Is Mike listening?
Maybe not anymore.
Yes, he is.
Okay. Well, since he might be, Mike is, in a previous life, sat with many of those municipalities to put this list together. So, yeah, anyways, I think that's it then, right?
I'm just glad I didn't try to take credit for all of it. Because he would have heard.
Yeah, exactly.
Great job, Don.
I worked for hours on this.
Award winning.
So we'll, in a couple of weeks, we still have a meeting or two before we have to submit this, according to the memo?
Yes.
March 15th.
Yeah, I would tend to think, given the nature of the comments that were made, I think we can make those changes, probably have this back to you at the next meeting, so we can wrap it up.
I will volunteer Mike to have it ready for the next meeting.
Someday, in 30 years, I'll be able to ride my bike from the post office the whole way over to Fisherman's Paradise. Great.
And beyond.
And beyond.
Yeah.
You're making Lindsay's day.
Yeah, ear to ear. Such a good news.
Lindsay's been spotted in the canyon.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Spotted in the canyon. Spotted in the canyon.
Oh, boy.
It's that time of night.
I believe that concludes old business, takes us to new business, with quite fortunately, we have none. And that takes us to staff informatives, which we do have some information in our packet. Anything beyond that that staff wants to add to? Or anybody on the council have questions about staff informatives? No? All right. One quick question on other matters, if no one else has any. Have we decided on the possibility of us trying to huddle prior to our next meeting? Are we far enough in that doodle poll?
Yeah, we have been unsuccessful in identifying a meeting time that's going to accommodate everybody in February. Mike and I have discussed, I think what we will plan to do is to approach council for a personnel conversation, an executive session prior to our next February meeting, starting at 6:30. I don't think it will take us long to convey what we want to convey to council relative to personnel, and I think that we will just try to address that in that fashion, given the fact that we really were not able to come up with the time that was suitable to get together independently.
Wow. We're one busy group, aren't we?
It's difficult.
All right, having heard that, does anybody have any heartburn with us trying to get together at 6 and do what we were going to do tonight at 6 on the 20th? Okay. So another double header, 6:30 on the 20th?
That's fine.
As long as we're not here till 10.
No promises.
Hi, have you met Eric Bernier?
Hey, it's only February.
Yes.
Going out with a bang. All right, if there anything else on their other matters? Anybody?
Next year.
Going once, going twice? Motion to adjourn? I hear a motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
I hear a second.
Yes.
We're adjourned.